A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win it!
You know what time it is.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic.
Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection.
Holy cow! Oh my God!
I don't believe it! It just continues. My, oh my!
You believe in miracles?
Do you know what time it is?
I wake up in the morning, I kiss excellence.
Welcome back into another episode of the Sports Hour. This is Mitch-Mo.
And this is Dallen, guys. Welcome on into another episode of the Sports Hour. So good to be here on this Wednesday night.
We don't want to start over again, do we?
We don't want to start over because you did great on that intro. You killed it. You're bringing the energy, bringing the hype. That's what we love to see.
I think that's my job at the beginning of the show, is just set the tone. Set the tone. I needed to bring high energy. I saw one of my biggest pet peeves today when I was at the grocery store, and it irks me. It gets under my skin. If you're one of those people that don't return your shopping cart, you're scum of the earth.
Yeah.
Scum of the earth. And I saw someone, and I almost went. What would be like the male version of like, can I speak to the manager lady?
Like the male version of a Karen? I don't know.
Well, I don't use Karen. I don't use
called.
Karen
Okay.
because I know a really nice Karen. Got to meet the very nice Karen. I use Betty because I know a Betty I don't
love
like.
it.
So
sure. Yes.
I don't know,
the male of equivalent of that. I'm not sure. I'm sure someone's figured it out, but
a Devlin. I don't know.
That seems targeted. Are you trying to talk about someone specifically here?
I hate that name. I just hate that name. But I almost was like, hey, don't be a scumbag and return your cart when you're done. Come on.
Yeah, that's bad.
If you're one of those people, change right now.
Be better. And if not,
it's getting hot. You know, those people don't want to be out there collecting carts. Just put it back where it's supposed to go so they can come out, grab it, move on to the next one, you know?
Exactly.
They don't gotta be chasing things down.
Yeah, just be better, people. And if not, we hope you trip over your shoelaces.
Yeah. I hope you step on a Lego. Yeah. I do.
Oh, that's actually kind of rough.
I know. I mean, yeah, that's where we're at. That's the level we're at.
We're starting off with all kinds of energy on this podcast here, Mitch. We are recording this on July 12th. We're live tonight, as always, on YouTube and Twitter. If you're joining us on our YouTube or the Twitter page for this little live podcast, hello, thanks for joining. If you listen and you're interested, like, hey, you always talk about it, where is it at? We've plugged it already, but youtube.com/the Sports Hour guys or twitter.com/Sports Hour guys. That's where you can follow us and join us live every Wednesday night when we have an episode. And here we are with episode 170, Mitch. And a fun one today. We'll get into a little bit of news and notes around the world of sports, a little NBA, a little MLB All-Star week, but it's the summer, guys. So more fun on this week's episode. We've got a draft today on the episode and a tier list. We are tier ranking the college football playoff contenders in 2023. 20 teams that we think will be contenders in the college football playoff, and we'll tier rank those based on how much of a contender they are. So that'll be a lot of fun, included, with some classics. Forgotten All-Star. Mitch got to continue the top 5. We're on to what decade this week on the best quarterbacks?
It's going to get bitching, guys, because we're going into the 1980s.
Oh, wow. That is and listen, like, I mean, that's on the back half of the podcast. You guys got to look forward to that, but I'm already getting psyched because that's a great decade for quarterbacks. I mean, there are some killer quarterbacks in the 80s. I can't imagine what that's going to look like.
I will say we're going to have an unprecedented list because I'm doing something that I've never done on the list before.
Whoa.
And we may have a record number of honorable mentions.
Record number. Wow.
It's a stacked decade. And to be honest with you, I think we're just going to see that the further we go along.
Yeah.
I think like as we get into the 90s are going to be wild, but
true.
Something unprecedented that has never happened in the history of top fives is happening today. So
wow,
I will say that.
What a tease, Mitch. Wow, you'd think he's been in the game for a while with that tease there. Oh my goodness.
I've been in the top 5 game of almost 5 years. So over 5, almost 5, 4 years. So it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one.
Looking forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. It's always great to be here, and we appreciate you listening, watching, participating, however you are. We just appreciate you hanging out with us every week. So, Mitch, without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's start with a little bit of NBA, a little bit of MLB to start the podcast, and I want to start with some NBA stuff. NBA free agency has got underway. We did a little preview of that on the last episode. And all things considered, not a ton of huge, significant moves in NBA free agency. A lot of the big names ended up staying put. Kyrie stays in Dallas. Draymond stays in Golden State. James Harden's status still TBD. So I guess that could be a move potentially. But some mid-level moves, some big contracts handed out to a couple guys, but nothing really too significant out of NBA free agency that we want to really get into. The one major thing that I kind of want to start with, Mitch, is the Damian Lillard situation, which we've alluded to and discussed on this podcast already, but the trade request is official now. It is official. Dame has requested a trade for the Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers will be looking into moving on from the longtime star and face of their franchise. And I think it's an interesting situation. And not much has changed with that news. Like, we already knew this. We already speculated this. And the timeline is TBD. But Portland has been very clear. They're going to seek the best deal possible for Damian Lillard. And that's regardless of where he may want to go. So it will be interesting to see which direction they sort of go after as far as trade compensation. Obviously, he wants to go to Miami. That's where he wants to play. The problem is that Miami doesn't really have a compelling package to send back for a player like Damian Lillard. He also mentioned the Nets as a possibility. They're sort of in the same boat. Some of the other teams that have reached out reportedly, obviously, I thought this one was a little. So you have like the Los Angeles Clippers have reached out. They're a possibility, right? There's been rumors of Paul George and breaking up Kawhi and PG. So could you move PG, bring in Dame? That would sort of make sense. But on the outside of contenders thing, San Antonio and Utah have shown a lot of interest and made calls to Portland. We don't know what the deals or if they've even submitted a formal trade, like a deal to them, but there is interest from those two teams. Obviously, rebuilding teams with young pieces, very different situations for Damian Lillard, who wants to contend, doesn't want to go start a rebuild. I mean, maybe he wants to play with Wemby. That wouldn't be so bad, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Because again, those are the kind of teams that can offer a ton of draft picks, young players, and really give Portland what they want. But you also have a NBA superstar who's given you everything for a decade. And yet, do you owe him a little bit here and say, you know what, we'll do right by you and we'll take a good deal, but we'll try to place you in a good spot. What are your thoughts on this situation, some of the locations? And I guess that question, should Portland even consider that, Damian Lillard and what he's meant for the franchise when they make this decision, or should this just be purely a business decision and they should take the best deal available?
Yes.
Okay.
And here's why I say that is at the end of the day, the Portland Trail Blazers are a business, right? They are in the basketball business and they need to do the smart business thing. And so I have no doubt in my mind that they'll be looking for the best business decision for them to make. However, on the flip side of it, though, I also think that they're a organization that is, even though Dame Lillard may not be playing for them next year, they're exceptionally loyal to Dame. Mm-hmm. And that they are willing to do the best that they can to put him in a contending situation, get him to a contender, get him to hopefully his desired location, which would be Miami, and say, look, we'll try our best, but there's really no guarantees here, because at the end of the day, they do have to run a business. I think that something does get done with Miami. I think Miami gives up more than maybe they want to get Dame. And I think Miami's desperate enough, right, So they've been to 2 NBA finals in the last 3 years. They're right on the precipice of getting this done. They can go be an instant favorite out of the East if they add Dame Lillard to that already loaded roster by giving up, a Tyler Hero and a ton of, Tyler Hero. I can't even.
Every draft pick and draft swap available, they would have to
put together an insane package of draft picks and pick swaps to get this done. So I think that there's both sides of that argument are going to come into play when it comes to moving Dame away from Portland.
Yeah, I do think, in my opinion, Miami has to do this. If any, they got to the finals twice and couldn't get through. Why? Because they needed somebody else alongside Jimmy Butler. And Bam Adebayo is a fantastic player, an all-star player, but he's not the kind of guy that wins you finals in that way. You can't give him the ball and let him work. He doesn't do that. He is a piece that complements other stars.
He's Pascal Siakam for that team.
Yeah, he's Dennis Rodman, right?
Yeah.
Like you needed him, but you couldn't have relied on him to win you championships. You couldn't be the second best player on a championship team, right? So they need somebody else, and Dame is the perfect guy. They should mortgage everything for him. And it'll probably involve a third team to bring in more assets to send back to Portland to keep them satisfied. And so we'll sort of see how that all plays out. But I mean, again, Portland has made it clear we're not in a rush. We're going to take the best deal, and we'll work our way to that best deal, whatever that looks like. And but I do think they will do right by him, and they should, in my opinion. Not like you should take absolutely. A shitty deal by any means, but like get this thing done with Miami. This guy is giving you everything. He could have left 5 years ago, and everyone would have felt like, yeah, deserved. You can leave. You've given enough already. And he, you know what I mean? He's stuck around for a decade trying to take this franchise to heights. He's taken them to Western Conference Finals. And that's more than enough to deserve like getting kind of looked after here. So we'll see what happens with that situation. But sort of the one big lingering thing right now in the NBA offseason, the James Harden situation, will he end up in Philly or back in Philly? Will he end up somewhere else? I mean, we'll see at this point. The money's kind of dried up. So not a lot of places for him to go to, if not back to Philly. And then, other trade things. I think this Paul George thing is real. The noise around that the Clippers are trying to make some sort of splashy move and potentially break up that pairing that hasn't worked out there. So is that the third team that gets involved in Dame? Does PG end up somewhere? And, how does that, that's the other sort of domino I'm waiting to fall this NBA offseason. But other than that, that's pretty much where we're at as far as free agency and the rest goes. So.
Yeah, I think we're just it's a waiting game right now. We'll just have to see kind of what happens. And I think the next big thing we'll be talking about really is this Damian Lillard situation and where he winds up, or the Paul George situation. I don't foresee a very splashy offseason for the NBA. Everything kind of seems chalk right now.
Yeah, pretty quiet. And do remember, like last year, that Donovan Mitchell trade came in August. There was all this talk around the trade deadline after the Gobert trade that Mitchell was going to be traded. And then it took like a month, 4 or 5 weeks before he finally got moved. So it could happen some random Wednesday in August where he'd be sitting there and be like, oh shit, look at that. Dame got traded, so we'll sort of just keep tabs there. I do want to mention one other NBA thing, and this is interesting. And if you're an NBA fan on this podcast, you may or may not know about this. We thought it'd be interesting to discuss the new inaugural in-season tournament that the NBA is implementing in the 2023-2024 season. It's something we've discussed that they would be doing. We have more details on what this in-season tournament will look like. The in-season tournament will tip off on November 3rd and culminate in a championship hosted in Las Vegas on December 9th. How this works, or essentially the format of this, is all 30 teams have been randomly drawn into groups of 5 based on win-loss records. Beginning on November 3rd and going through November 28th, so essentially the entire month of November, each team will play 4 designated group play games, playing each team in the group, one night against the opponent, 2 at home, 2 on road, all balanced. Those will happen throughout the course of their schedule in the month of November, those 4 games. 8 teams will advance from this eliminatory group play to the knockout round, being, the best standings plus like 2 wild cards. The knockout round is single elimination games in the early months of December 4th and December 5th. And then the championship game on December 5th. With the qualifying teams competing for a prize pool. So there will be a monetary compensation for the teams included in the knockout championship rounds, as well as a trophy, the NBA Cup, the little bragging rights there. All 67 games that will be played as part of this in-season tournament will count towards the regular season standings, other than the championship game. So all of these games are already included in the schedule. It's not additional games. They're not playing more games now than they were before. These are all a part of the 82 games the teams would already play, with the exception of the championship game. So technically, 2 teams in the NBA will play an 83rd game with that championship game that won't count towards their standings or their record that season. And that's pretty much it. So we've got the groupings now. They've announced what the 6 groupings, East and West, will look like, and we'll see how this plays out. I personally love this idea. I think this is really interesting. I am glad that the NBA worked this into the normal schedule, that they didn't add games, they didn't make this extra things. We're playing it within the normal course of the month, which makes total sense. And November is so slow for the NBA season, Mitch. Nobody cares about basketball in November. We're full football at that point. So why not give fans an extra incentive to watch? Maybe I'll actually watch that one matchup, the group play matchup for that week. Because hey, that'll mean something down the road. Unlike that Tuesday matchup against some random team that isn't going to matter at the end of the season. So I like the timing of it, where how they're sort of playing this out. Again, we'll see how interesting it is when teams get to the knockout stage. How competitive is it? Does are stars sitting out or stars playing in it? What that sort of looks like will determine a lot of the success, but I like the idea. I think the idea is good, and I'm totally down for trying new things, especially when it doesn't mess too much with the normal integrity of the schedule and sort of the flow of everything. So
what's the incentive for winning this then?
I don't have the number. I know I've seen the number already of what the prize will look like. But it's not in this article specifically, but there will be monetary for the knockout round. So for the 8 teams that reach that knockout round, there will be prize money included based on how well they finish throughout that. So you get a little bit of, bonus if you get to that stage.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm skeptical. I'm just skeptical, and I'm kind of an old head anyway. So, I'm always a little bit skeptical when it comes to change. I don't know if the incentive would have to be pretty big for teams in an era where we're so worried about load management and how many games a guy plays, which I think is a bunch of baloney anyway. But in an era where that's such a concern, I have a hard time believing that if the incentive's not that big, I don't see how that changes that if stars play more games, because there's that big of an incentive to go and win this midseason tournament. It almost seems like it's just a bragging rights thing. And so, I'm skeptical. I mean, sure, I guess it would be a fun way for fans to keep track of how this midseason tournament is going, but kind of like introducing fantasy sports into the real world a little bit, like a real world application for it. But it's a little, I'm not on board yet. I guess I just have to see it first. But.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and a lot depends on too, like how the teams receive it, how the players receive it, how they treat it. Again, if they're disinterested, fans will be disinterested, right? It's just as simple as that.
Right.
So the players have to be engaged and interested. And you're right. If LeBron was going to sit on a Tuesday night in November anyways, is he going to sit for the group play game, right? For the in-season tournament? If he was going to sit on that Tuesday night anyways, is he playing? Is it that much more incentive for him to play in that game, or is he sitting out anyways? And if he's sitting out anyways, then right, what is the cost? What is the added benefit here? Other than, I guess, just something a little more interesting in November when people don't really care about basketball. And I guess that's where, from the NBA's perspective, from the marketing perspective of the NBA, I think this is a great idea because you're getting more interest in your sport in a time where people are least interested in your sport, right? And in that, and that makes a lot of sense. Will it actually work? Again, yeah, TBD. But I hope the players care about it a little bit. I hope the games are competitive and at least interesting because I think it's a good idea. I think it's fun to keep things interesting, especially during a slow time of your season. And the NBA season is long, 82 games, and it overlaps with the other sports. And so the interest sort of wanes and it goes and it ebbs and flows, right, until you kind of get to playoff time. So I like that they're trying to think of ways to make it more interesting, and we'll see what it looks like this year.
Yeah.
I
guess we'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, the monetary, I think I heard it's like the winning team is like 100,000 per player. It's not going to be, it's not motivating guys making $30 million to do anything probably much different. But a nice little bonus, I guess. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
We wouldn't complain about $6 figures in our bank account for a little bonus.
I'd play every minute of those games to get $6K.
I'd be crawling on the ground being like,
my fat ass passed out at half court. It's like, I'm going for that those 6 figures.
Oh yeah, seriously.
I'm gonna look like the fat guy from Longest Yard, just laying there. Give me a can of corn.
A can of corn, I'll be fine.
Give me a Diet Coke.
Oh man, love it.
Oh man. Well, going from one portion of the sports world to another, down we had MLB All-Star Week this last week. We had the Home Run Derby on Monday night, which, by the way, if you didn't tune into that, what a fun event. I think the best All-Star event in all of sports still going right now. I mean, it's unmatched. It's fun. Adley Rutschman in that first round was incredible to watch. Hit 21 home runs from the left side of the plate, got his bonus time, stepped over to the right side of the plate, and then hit 6 more out. Mm-hmm. That was fun to watch. J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez, put on an absolute show for the hometown crowd, hitting 41 home runs in the first round and a home run derby record. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. winds up winning the home run derby, though. A really, really fun event to watch. And then the All-Star game last night, National League getting it done 2-3 over the American League.
Like first time in like a decade or like 8 years or something like that. It
had been a while.
The NL had won. I was like, what?
It had been a
crazy.
Yeah. But I love the All-Star weekend for Major League Baseball. I think it is the best All-Star week that we have in sports right now. NHL is a close second. I think they have a pretty solid All-Star week as well. But I hate that every club has to be represented in this. Can you tell me who Brent Rooker is? Yeah,
no
I'm
idea.
an A's. I'm an A's fan. I had no idea who he was. And I mean, I'm not watching a ton of A's games right now because why would I put myself through that torture?
You're not a masochist.
But he's making the All-Star team as a DH because someone from the A's has to be on this team. I feel like when we get like that, every team has to be represented in the All-Star game. We're taking guys off the roster that deserve to be there more. I'm kind of over the equal representation throughout the league. If you don't have an All-Star, you don't have an All-Star.
Yeah.
You just don't. And I think that Major League Baseball should take a look into that because I think it takes away from the quality of the game when you don't have the best players playing from top to bottom. And some guys are sitting it out. And for being such a successful weekend, it does put kind of a damper when I have to sit there and watch Brent Rooker taking at bat or, Austin Hayes taking at bat. I'm not in on this whole equal representation across the league.
That's fascinating because they are the only, at least, and I'm not sure 100% on the NHL, so I won't speak for the NHL, but among the NBA and MLB and NFL, they are the only league that does that. And I do think, yeah, I mean, it is sort of an interesting situation on the one hand, right? You think if you're the MLB, well, if we include one player from every team, well, then all MLB fans will be interested in our All-Star week, right? Because everyone's represented. And so everyone will be interested. But on the other hand, are you making people disinterested because you're inviting players that don't really belong and leaving off players that do, right? And so there is a balance to that. And I'm with you. If and listen, and this is why this is great, because this is coming from Mitch, the A's fan, who didn't know the A's player. So if Mitch is coming out here saying, listen, guys, like, I don't even know who this kid is, so we're doing something wrong, like, we're probably doing something wrong. So I'm with you there.
I want to read you his statistics for the season.
Okay.
260 at-bats.
Okay.
Hasn't played a full season.
Yeah.
He's batting 246 with 16 home runs and 44 RBIs. Doesn't sound like an all-star to me, right?
That's an wow. Oh, yeah.
Doesn't sound like an all-star to me.
No.
I mean,
no.
Look, and it's just that it's taking more talented, more deserving players off the field. And you brought up, maybe if we include a player from every team, that will add how many more fan bases want to tune into the All-Star game. No A's fan is tuning in to watch Brent Rooker, okay? Yeah. We're not tuning in to watch Brent Rooker because he's going to get his 1 AB. He's going to pop out weak down the third baseline in foul territory. And then what? We tuned in to watch that one at bat? No, we want to tune in and watch Vlad Guerrero hit. We want to tune in and watch Shohei Ohtani hit and Garrett Cole pitch. We want to see Freddie Freeman and Sean Murphy. We want to see Zach Gallen and Spencer Strider. We want to see those guys play. I don't want to see Brent Rooker play. Right. Because Brent Rooker doesn't deserve to be there.
Yep. It's an all-star game.
It's an all-star game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. And again, it is kind of interesting because, MLB, the only one that does it this way. And there's a part of it that makes sense, but there's also a part of it of, are you limiting the quality? Are you tainting the quality of your game and what it means to be an all-star if you're forcing people to get in just to meet a requirement, not because they actually deserved it. So, I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah. But I mean, other than that, it was a great All-Star week. I thought the game was entertaining.
Hosted in Seattle. You love to see that. The home run derby was excellent.
Seattle, what a beautiful stadium too, by the way.
Oh,
I mean, they always
is one of the best.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places to watch a game.
I haven't been to a game in Seattle, but just from the optics looking, I'd be driving by it or seeing it on TV. It's beautiful. For me, AT&T or Oracle.
Great. That's
San
number
Francisco.
one.
Is a beautiful stadium, but
it's the hardest thing for me to say as a Dodgers fan, but they have the best setting. They have the best baseball stadium in the country, maybe the world. I haven't been around that much, but it is the best. It is hands down the best. And
I'll tell you what, when I walk into that stadium, I feel like Borat walking into the hotel room, like whoa,
especially coming from the Coliseum.
Yeah, because I got to go to the Coliseum to watch my team, so. The king of the castle. You could never get this.
The castle. That's amazing. Too funny. Love it.
Yeah.
oh man.
But Dallen, speaking of baseball, All-Star Week, home run derby, right? We saw some of the best sluggers. By the way, home run derby, I didn't mention him, but shout out Mookie Betts for getting involved in the home run derby. He had said multiple times in his interview, I'm not going to win this thing. Like, there's no way I'm going to win this thing. And shout out to his wife, too, for talking him into it.
Yeah.
To just kind of like, hey, just go do it. Say you did it and have fun. Mm-hmm. I think he hit like 11 home runs in the first round, which was by far the fewest.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was fun to see a guy like that who's obviously, he's a top tier player. He is an S tier player in baseball right now. And to see him participate in an event like that was definitely a ton of fun to watch. Yeah. So shout out Mookie, shout out Mookie's wife, shout out their kid, shout out all the Betts family for getting Mookie involved in the home run derby. But Dallen, since we just saw a bunch of sluggers hit a shit ton of home runs, I think it's appropriate for this week's draft to talk about some sluggers, draft some sluggers. And so for this week's draft, we're going to be drafting the biggest sluggers in MLB history.
Yes.
And Dallen, I've noticed a lot on some of these drafts that we've had, a lot of interaction on the socials. We appreciate the interaction. A lot of ragging on us. on some of our draft selections, and I love it. Keep them coming. I love to see the ragging. And to be honest with you, we're gonna miss some on this. We're gonna miss some in this draft because it is a deep, deep list when you think about the history of Major League Baseball. But darn it, someone's gonna get missed. But all the picks are gonna be right at the same time somehow.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was telling Mitch before we started, I was like, I'm nervous for this draft. Not like for bad reasons, but just because there's too many good names. I'm afraid I'm going to leave someone out and then just get roasted for it. But we can't be afraid of that. That's what we're here to do. And I think it just goes to show, I love this because we'll talk about some guys that are just all-time greats, great all around. But then there's some guys that were just great sluggers, that were just some home run hitters. That's what they were known for. It's what they were great at. And it'll be fun to sort of bring some of those guys into the conversation that we don't normally get to discuss. They don't get mentioned with the greats. So yeah, right. Very much looking forward to this. Mitch, you are up this week with the first pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm going to take the guy that I think is the rightful and true home run champion of all time. The man who didn't cheat to get to the top of the list. Give me Hammer and Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
Give me Hank. I have a hard time acknowledging Barry Bonds as the all-time home run leader, even though I know it was in an era where everyone did it. Or a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people did it. And it's kind of universally accepted as that was just the era. But I have a hard time giving him that home run king title when, man, Hank just did it on raw power and consistency. Never hit over 50 home runs in his career, but a ton of 40 home run seasons and longevity. Give me Hammer and Hank.
I love that. I mean, yeah, Hank Aaron's basically has to be the number one pick,
Yeah.
And that's fair because I would have had to go with him in my pick if you didn't. So yeah, I mean, Hammer and Hank, what's more to say? He was, and I love this because everybody has different careers. Hank Aaron was like a longevity guy. He hit 30 home runs for ever. Right. It's not like he had 60 plus or huge seasons in just a short stretch. He was just he just hit 30 home runs every year of his career. And when you play for that long and you're that consistent, you're going to rack them up. And that's exactly what he did.
I don't have his numbers pulled up right now, but I think his career high was somewhere around 47 in a season. It was just he just consistently hit.
Yep. 1971 at 37 years old, by the way. Hitting his career high in home runs. That's incredible.
Was it 47?
47. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
1971. Cool. Yeah. Well done there, dude.
Jeez. Oh, yeah. Pulled that out of my ass. I don't know. But lucky guess, I guess.
Yeah. Hank Aaron's a great 101. Has to be the 101, Mitch. For my first pick, I am going to go with the guy. I am going to go with Barry Bonds.
Okay.
I'll go Barry Bonds with my first pick here. And obviously the steroids, they're going to come up. This is the first time we're talking about them in the biggest sluggers in MLB history, because there will be some guys that get mentioned that were involved in steroids. And that's just the reality of it. And I think as someone who grew up in the era, I think for me, it's just hard to separate them. I can't fully separate them. I can't fully separate these players from the history of baseball, from what they did on the field, whether it was right or not in hindsight, right? As we know it now. So all that being said, Barry Bonds was a Hall of Fame player before he took steroids. He was a great slugger before he took steroids. Now, obviously afterwards, he was maybe the greatest ever, but Barry Bonds still has to be on the list. So yeah, I'll take him. I'll take him here with my first pick.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you have to make a real effort to separate those guys from the rest of everyone else, because when you look at that era and the players that were in it, it made such an impact on the future of the game and how they handle drug testing and how they suspend guys that test positive. It really is tough to separate them from the rest of history. And I think you made the right pick there. And I also just despise Barry Bonds as a human being. So I couldn't get myself to bring myself to take him. But you, as the resident Dodgers fan, hats off to you for getting the fortitude, the testicular fortitude to take a guy that ruined you guys for so many years.
I hate and respected him as a kid. You know, it was like, I hated him because he was a Giant and, you know, he was better. But I also, you had to just respect the great player, you know. So, yeah, I'll go Barry Bonds #1. And, yeah, I'm sure that's not the first time and the last time we'll talk about steroids in this.
Oh, yeah. It won't be the last.
And this top 5. I am going to go away from steroids. I'm going to go back a ways with my second pick. Mainly because I'm not sure, like, I don't need this guy, but he may not come back to me. And you're kind of old school, so I got to go old school here. I'm going to go Mickey Mantle with my second pick here.
Who I was thinking.
I'm going Mickey Mantle with the biggest sluggers of all time. And the reason why, you might be thinking, oh, you know, he's like not that high up on the home runs list. He's 18th.
18th. Yeah.
He's 18th. 536 home runs. Mitch, there are 6 players in MLB history who hit over 500 home runs with less than 10,000 at-bats. And Mickey Mantle is one of those players. And I think that's pretty significant when you consider a lot of these guys hit it. You know, we talked about Hank Aaron, great player, but had a ton of opportunities at it. You know, you play long enough, eventually you're going to hit some of these numbers. He did it in a short amount of time. He did it in an era where guys, you know, weren't bombing it the way that we know now, back in the 50s and 60s. Had a career high 54 home runs in 1961, 52 in 1956. This guy was a legitimate slugger back in the day and one of the best. So respect to the classics, respect to the old heads. I'll throw Mickey Mantle in there.
Also, by the way, I love actually this pick because he has more home runs of any switch hitter ever in baseball history. So
there you go.
I
love that. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he was a switch hitter, and he has more home runs than any other switch hitter in history. I also want to point out that you mentioned that 1961 season where he hit 54. If you haven't seen the movie 61, go watch it. It is all about the 1961 home run race between Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. Roger Maris wound up breaking Babe Ruth's record that year, hitting 61 in 61. Great film, by the way. You should go check it out. So
love it.
Yeah, love that pick, actually. The more you kind of walked me through it, because I'm looking at the rest of the names on here. I'm like, how'd you pass this guy up? How'd you pass him up?
Yeah, there are some good names on there, and we'll get to them, I'm sure. Well, hey, speaking of that, you're up now. You got back-to-back picks.
Well,
here.
I mean, he fell right in my lap. I have to take Babe Ruth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he fell right in my lap. I got to take him.
Yeah, he did.
So, and if Babe Ruth fell to the 3rd or 4th round, that's when we're going to get our heads chewed off in the comments. So, like,
fair enough.
I can't let him fall too much further. So, give me the Babe. Give me the Babe with my second pick.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest. Some will argue the greatest when you consider the era that he played in and he was a pitcher and a batter. Did it, you know, all throughout his career, everywhere he played. I mean, Babe Ruth was incredible. So, I mean,
he was also on our nicknames draft.
He was
as well. And I didn't even mention one of his best nicknames, the Sultan of SWAT.
The Great Bambino. Yeah. I mean, he had some great ones.
The Colossus of Clout.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Those are some great ones.
I can't believe I picked the guy in that draft, and I can't believe I didn't even name all those other nicknames that he had outside of just Babe.
That's
but
true.
Babe Ruth with my second pick. And to kick off the 3rd round, I'm going with my favorite baseball player to ever live. My favorite baseball player of all time, Ken Griffey Jr.
Damn it. Mitch, I almost picked him in the second because I knew he wasn't going to get back to me, but I was like, is it too early for Griffey at the 2? If I pass up Babe Ruth for Ken Griffey Jr., am I doing it wrong? Oh, it's such a good pick.
I mean, he was my favorite player as a kid. He still is as an adult. The sweetest swing you've ever seen, man. I mean, silky smooth. And the kid is he's the guy to me. He is the most talented. I would even say I would put him up there in the conversation as the most talented baseball player to ever live. Just on 5 tools. He did everything exceptionally well before all the injuries happened. If he just wasn't made of glass there on the back half of his career, who knows what kind of numbers he would have put up. And he still hit 630, good for 7th all time on the list. So give me the kid. I'm taking Ken.
God, I love that pick so much. Yeah, I couldn't have picked him at the 2. I think if I passed up Babe Ruth and all those guys for Griffey, that might have been a little too much. But oh man, I love that pick so much. That's such a good one.
I mean, I don't
wanted
think
him on my
that would have
list
been
so bad.
I don't think that would have been too egregious, though.
I
don't think it would have been too egregious.
I was.
I mean, you passed up Ruth and Griffey for Mantle, so like it couldn't have been that egregious that you took Griffey.
Fair enough.
There, so
fair enough. It's a good pick. All righty. I am up with my third pick. I've got Barry Bonds, Mickey Mantle. Again, we're doing the biggest sluggers in MLB history for our draft today. And, there are 4 guys that have hit 700 home runs in their career, and we've named 3 of them. So why not go for the 4th? As Mitch just throws the mic in anger, I'm going Albert Pujols.
I knew he wasn't going to get back, and I'm still mad about it. Damn it.
Hey, that's like another. That was like him and Griffey are kind of. I just love those guys. I mean,
I love Albert.
Love Tio Albert. Nothing brings me more joy than knowing that he played a year for my Dodgers, and we get to be a part of the storied career of Albert Pujols, because he was one of my favorite players just in major leagues. Just a lovable guy, a great personality, an absolute slugger. Hit 703 home runs in his career over 22 seasons. His career high was 49 home runs in 2006. Never hit over 50, but just consistently hit homers. Just was that guy. And Pujols is a legend. So I'm very happy.
He's in that same vein as Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
He did it the right way. He was not going to blow you away with like these gaudy home runs numbers, these 50 home run seasons, 60 home run seasons, but he was good for 40. He was good for 40 in his prime. And you knew that year in and year out. He was good for 38 to 45 without fail.
Yeah. And Hank Aaron's a great person to bring up with this, Mitch, because if you look at like the top 10, only 2 players in the top 10 in home runs have over 13,000 at bats, and it's Hank Aaron and Albert Pujols. So
longevity.
Guys played a long time, super consistent, were able to rack up those numbers, hit the 700 mark. So yeah, I'm very happy with Albert Pujols at 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And you should be, because I think that's a steal in the 3rd round. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now it gets a little tricky. Mitch, as I'm kind of looking at some of my favorite sluggers just as a kid growing up, guys I liked. And this one is going to be another controversial pick. Maybe I'm dating myself. You can tell I'm a millennial with my picks, but I'm going to go Sammy Sosa with my 4th pick here. I'm going to go Sammy Sosa's 9th all-time in home runs, 609 home runs with less than 10,000 at-bats in his career. Now, Sosa's got a tainted sort of past. You've got a corked bat, you've got steroids and the like. But again, as we talked about with Barry Bonds, despite all that, obviously at his peak powers was an incredible force. I mean, you look from 1996 to 2003, hit 40 home runs every season except for one, which he hit 36. He hit over 50 home runs 4 times, 60 home runs 3 times, career high 66 home runs and 158 RBIs in 1998, where he, won the MVP. But Sammy Sosa, a great slugger. Yes, he probably did use steroids, and that probably helped.
Well, I mean, again, an iconic guy from the era of baseball that we grew up with, right? When you were playing wiffle ball in your backyard, how many times did you try to do the Sammy Sosa hop after you just got a hold of one? I mean,
Yep.
I mean, an iconic guy from that era of baseball, and nothing wrong with taking Sammy Sosa there at the 4th pick.
Yeah. All righty. You are Mitch is back up. He's got his final 2 picks.
Can we go 6 rounds? I mean, come on. This is so much fun.
I think we could go 10 legitimately.
Yeah, we'll stick it with 5.
So many good names.
We'll talk about some other honorable mentions, I guess. Look, I'm going to go with the guy 6th all time on the list. The Say Hey Kid. Give me Willie Mays.
Yeah. Love it.
Again, a longevity guy. Played something like 24 years in the league. Guy was just an iron horse, played for a long time. He's got, obviously his most well-known clip highlight isn't even him at the plate, right? It's the over-shoulder catch in the World Series, the 54 World Series. 58 World Series, something like that. Willie Mays, the say hey kid. You can't not have him on my team.
Yeah, I love that. Two seasons with over 50 home runs, 1955 and 1965, and 660 total home runs for Willie Mays. Yeah, that's an excellent pick.
Oh yeah. My fifth pick, I'm gonna go with an often forgotten guy.
Ooh,
a guy that has the personality of like you just want him to be your uncle. Like I don't know. I'm gonna call him Uncle Jim. I'm going Jim Thome.
Jim Thome. Okay.
I'm going Jim Thome with my fifth pick. 8th all time on the list with 612. Guy was a masher, man. Guy could just mash. Played for the Indians, for the White Sox. I think he had a stint with someone else. I'm blanking on the team, but
who'd you say? Indians, White Sox?
Indians, White Sox.
He played for Philly.
Oh, Philly.
And then he played for a bunch of random teams at the end of his career. But yeah, he spent 3 seasons with Philly. Yeah. So
right. Guy's just a masher, man. And yeah, I gotta have Jim Thome on my team with my fifth pick. Another guy from that growing up era that we just always remember. That was clean too. Did it clean.
Yeah, and he had a great stretch. Yeah, right in those years. I'm looking at it, 2001 to 2003. Had 49, 52, and 47 home runs, respectively, in those 3 seasons at 30, 31, and 32 years old. So this was, into his career, and that was him peaking at his powers there. Yeah, very impressive career for him to hit 612 home runs over 22 seasons and end up in, top 8 all time. That's obviously very impressive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Mitch, that leaves me with my final pick. I am struggling. I'm not going to lie.
I'm more thinking right now, are we going to leave him out of this? Are we going to leave him out of this draft? We've taken everyone around him. I don't know if we're going to leave him off.
There's so many good players.
And I'm okay with leaving him off, by the way. But
I think I am too. I am going to go with, I liked this guy, and I want to include him on this list because he is a great player that isn't considered among the all-time greats, was one of the best sluggers of all time, but just probably doesn't get thought of in the conversations because it's just kind of a one-dimensional guy. Just, hit the shit out of the ball and hit a lot of home runs, but still had a fantastic career. 2-time MVP, 5-time All-Star, and a Hall of Famer. I'm going Frank Thomas.
Not who I thought you were going to pick.
Frank Thomas.
Okay.
Big Hurt.
The Big Hurt.
Yes. Yeah, Frank Thomas, 521 career home runs. And just a slugger. Just a guy that was a slugger. He did bat over 300 for his career. So I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy because he also could hit the ball really well, but just a big home run hitter. He was a big guy, 6'5", 240. Just your typical first baseman / DH, and you could throw Big Papi in there. He was sort of in that same mold. You've got a couple guys in our era, at least growing up, that were in that mold, but I don't know. I want to get, we don't talk about Frank Thomas ever, so why not give this guy a shout out for the great career he had as a slugger? So we'll go Frank Thomas, number 5.
I like that pick. I do like that pick. Not who I thought you were going to take. I thought you were going to go Big Papi there. So
I love, and me, I love Big Papi. I am partial to Big Papi, but we talk about Big Papi a lot.
Yeah,
spread the love.
Give Frank Thomas some love.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. All righty. That's our Sports Hour draft, the biggest sluggers in MLB history. Mitch, let's run through our list one more time for the folks.
All right, so I have Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Ken Griffey Jr., and Jim Thome.
And I have Barry Bonds, Mickey Mantle, Albert Pujols, Sammy Sosa, and Frank Thomas.
It's
pretty good.
Can we just address the elephant in the room?
A-Rod?
No one wanted A-Rod on their team, right?
And here's the thing. I think what it comes down to for me is that I just don't think of A-Rod as a slugger. He hit home runs. I'm not like taking that away. I mean, he's like, what, 5th all time in career home runs? I mean, the guy was hit 696 home runs, but like he was an all-around player. He did a lot of things really well. He wasn't just like a power guy. So I guess I just don't really think of him amongst the power guys the same way we do the names that we mentioned. So I guess for me, that's why I didn't really think about him too much.
I guess that's true. That, he just was kind of more of a well-rounded player. I didn't take him because he's an asshole. I just don't like him. So,
well, and that's fair because
he's not a good. He's not a good clubhouse guy, dude. He's not a good clubhouse guy.
He's not a good clubhouse guy. So
can't have him.
You're justified in that. He's the
old.
So of the top 10 all time in home runs in MLB history, the two names. I mean, obviously we took 10 guys. I wasn't just going to take the top 10 because that's lame. But the two guys we left off, number 5, Alex Rodriguez, and number 10, Frank Robinson, who had 586 career home runs. He didn't get included in this either.
And I think of Frank Robinson kind of the same way you think about Alex Rodriguez. Like I just don't put him in that slugger category. He did so many things well.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah. Speaking of guys, maybe you did consider. We did draft 10. Who did we have on your list that close honorable mentions that we didn't include?
Mark McGwire.
Yep, that was one of my next ones up for sure.
I mean, Reggie Jackson's got to be on there.
Yeah.
Harmon Killebrew. Going way, way, way old school, Jimmy Fox.
Okay. Yeah.
Mike Schmidt again, though, in the same vein as A-Rod.
Yeah. He hit a lot of home runs though, and you kind of forget he had that much power. But in the same vein as like you just don't think of him as a power guy. But that was the name I mentioned. I wrote down as well.
Right. I mean, Ted Williams, another one, the greatest hitter who ever lived. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, that guy has to cross your mind at some point. Hit 521, hit a home run in his final at bat of his career. So
there you
go.
go.
Little tidbit there.
Not many better ways to go out.
No, hell no. Were there? What were the other ones for you?
Yeah, Big Papi and Manny Ramirez were two that I consider. They're both over 500 for their career. And then Lou Gehrig was one that we didn't mention that I considered from another era, but a big time slugger for his era. And when you're trying to parse the difference between hitters in the 2000s and hitters in the 50s and 60s, we got to give these guys a little more credit. So I think, he was the one I considered as well. So
of the steroid era guys, one guy that we didn't mention, it probably was there no consideration for Rafael Palmeiro?
Yeah, not really. I mean, a great slugger, but I mean, like the Frank Thomases, the Big Poppies, I would have chosen a lot of those guys before I thought about Rafael Palmeiro. But he's the only other like steroid era guy, heavy steroid era guy that, besides McGwire, which we didn't pick, but obviously discussed. But
I kind of like to think of those like big steroid era guys, and Rafael Palmeiro is like the Ringo Starr of the group. Like,
people
he just kind of gets forgotten. He just kind of gets forgotten.
It's the big three, and that guy from Baltimore.
Yeah, exactly, right. There's Sosa, McGwire. There was Clemens.
Bonds.
Bonds. And then Palmeiro. Yeah,
exactly. Too funny. Oh man, well, great draft. That was fun. We always love our sports hour drafts and doing that throughout the off season. We will continue that, but right now we're going to take a quick break and hit a little mid roll. And when we come back, we'll get into who the hell is that? Forgotten All-Star. We'll get Mitch-Mo's top 5 list of the week, and then tier ranking the college football playoff contenders in 2023. So stick around and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Sports Hour with Mitch-Mo Dallen. Hope you enjoyed that smooth little drop by your boy DOPE, doing the opposite of people's expectations. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Dallen. Back half of the show, getting ready to get going. We got some Who the Hell Is That? A Forgotten All-Star top 5. And then, Dallen, we're going to tier list this thing to wrap out the show. Little debate about college football. I actually have to switch my caps now because we're out of the baseball side of things. It's football time.
Love it.
So
he goes from the Angels to the Oilers. That's for the podcast
right.
people who don't get to watch the hat change live. And if you don't get to watch it live, what are you doing? Come join us on Wednesday nights on YouTube, on Twitter, and you can see what hat Mitch is wearing every week because he brings the heat.
What the hell are you waiting for? Make sure you tune in and watch this thing live because, look, you get it unedited. You get it raw.
Yeah.
You get it unfiltered,
Mm.
which, I mean, we don't really filter ourselves anyway, but, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
It sounds better when you put it that way. Dallen, let's get into some of our fun stuff. Some of our favorite stuff to do here on the podcast is try to stump each other. Of, you know, can we recall certain names of certain players? So let's get into a little Who the Hell Is That?
Yeah.
Now, Dallen, you've been on a little bit of a roll as of late, getting it first guess, second guess. I mean, you've been hot. You've been red hot.
Yeah.
So I decided let's ramp it up a little bit. It's time to up the difficulty.
Uh-oh. Bringing the heat this week?
We're bringing a little bit of heat. Bringing just a little bit. I mean, like Serrano pepper heat. Just there's a little kick to it, but it's nice. It's a nice kick. It's not going to burn your mouth too much or your cranium in this case.
Oh.
So, Dallen, are you ready for a little Who the Hell Is That?
I am.
All right.
Ready.
Little reminder for the folks watching or listening. Who the Hell Is That is a game where I will give Dallen the career path of a certain player, and he will have to make the guess of what player that is based off their career path. He will have 3 hints and 3 guesses after that, because just guessing purely off the career path would be incredible in itself. So
it's pretty tricky. We'll see if we can do it. Maybe I'll pull it off this week.
I have
come out to stump me, and then I just immediately get it. How would you feel about that?
I want to stump you, but I have faith in you as well. So,
all righty, I'm ready.
Dallen, are you ready? Here we go.
Yes.
Career path of this NFL player: Kansas City, St. Louis.
Kansas City, St. Louis, huh?
That's it.
Okay. Kansas City, St. Louis. That is a good one. That is tricky. I love the St. Louis part because that kind of helps at least give an idea of
the era
that we're looking for. It's not the LA Rams, St. Louis we're looking for. Who this is? I'm not sure. So I'm just going to throw out a guess to get more info. So I'm going to go Trent Green.
No, not Trent Green, but a Chief and Ram in his own right. So
yes,
do appreciate that. Dallen, your first hint: this former 5th round pick, wide receiver, never eclipsed 500 yards receiving in any of his NFL seasons.
Never eclipsed 500 yards receiving in any of his seasons. Wow. Okay.
Don't worry. I'm not going to be a dick. It gets better.
I'm sure it does, but I love this. I love this because now I'm like, I got to really think here. Now I got to dig into this. Okay. Kansas City, St. Louis, 5th round pick, never eclipsed more than 500 receiving yards in a season in his career. Who? I'm gonna go. I don't think this is right. Dwayne Bowie.
Dwayne Bowe.
Bo. Yeah, Bowie. My bad. Bo.
Dwayne Bowe. No, that is incorrect. Good guess though. I think he might have been. I don't think he was a Chief his entire career. But all right, Dallen. Second hint: this two-time Pro Bowler led the NFL in all-purpose yards in 2003 and 2004.
Oh my God. Two-time Pro Bowler led in all-purpose yards. I love this. So we're looking for a returner, which I love this. And now we're looking for a special teams guy, wide receiver, but he was a returner because he's got the yards to rack up and he made a Pro Bowl, probably a special teamer. So now I'm trying to think. I swear to you, Mitch, I know who we're talking about, and the name is not coming, and it might. I might get there. But I swear, like in my head, I know who it is, but I can't think of the name right now.
No.
So I'm just gonna throw out a name because I gotta get one more guess. So I'm gonna go Priest Holmes. I know it's not correct, but
No, it's not
I can't
Priest
think of another one
Holmes.
right now. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you the third hint.
Okay.
This return specialist had the nickname the Human Joystick.
Oh my goodness. I'm telling you. I is it D'Angelo Hall? Or no, sorry, Dante Hall. Is it Dante Hall?
It is Dante Hall. Yes.
Oh my God. I knew it. I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you, for like the two guesses, I was like, this person is in my head. I'm seeing them on the field, and I cannot freaking bring up the name.
When you said
Dante
D'Angelo Hall, I was like,
yeah,
that's going to be a heartbreaker.
You're like, don't do it, Dallen. Don't do it. Oh my God. Dante Hall. Wow.
It is Dante Hall.
That is a good one, my friend. That was a challenging one. Holy smokes.
I'm glad you got it. Led the league back-to-back years in all-purpose yards as a return specialist. 2,446 yards in 2003, and then led the league again in 2004 with 2,236, but wasn't one of his Pro Bowl years. Wow. The guy had a weird career, weird career. And I think that's kind of probably typical of a return specialist, right? The guy that's his job to do it. 6 career kick returns for touchdowns, 6 career punt returns for touchdowns. The Human Joystick, of course, we remember him from those early mid 2000s highlight reels of him just breaking impossible tackles to return punts and kick returns. Dante Hall.
Wow.
The who the hell is that this week? Well done, Dallen.
Ooh, thanks, man. That was a real challenge. And like I said, I knew the player. I knew who it was. I just couldn't put the name together. But I got it at the last second. Thank goodness, because I'd be kicking myself. I don't really remember the Rams years. Do you have him pulled up at all? How long did he play in St. Louis?
2 years. He was there for 2 years.
Was that just the end of those last 2 years of his career then?
Yeah, 07 and 08.
Okay.
Not big numbers though. I don't know if he he only played in 7 games in 07 and 8 games in 08. So he probably was hurt or know a healthy scratch or something at that time at the point of his career. But
wow.
The St. Louis years definitely I picture him as a lifetime Chief. Right. So the Rams years kind of threw me for a loop too when I was looking them up. But
yeah. I love it. Wow. What a great job on the who the hell is that, Mitch. That was a excellent name. Oh, I'm feeling relieved. And now the pressure's on you, my friend, because we get to flip right over to the Forgotten All-Star. And Mitch has to now guess a player. We love the Forgotten All-Star. Mitch, you got it done. Did you get it last week? You did not. I'm trying to remember. We did Jamie Moyer the last time. But
I did. I got it at the very end.
That's right. Yep. Okay. I knew we were getting there, but yeah, that's right.
I should have got about 2 guesses earlier because you gave some really telling hints, but my mind went somewhere else. So.
It's not easy when you're in the moment. It is not easy trying to pull up those names. So we'll see how Mitch does this week on the Forgotten All-Star. And Mitch, this week we've got a NFL Pro Bowler up for you.
Boy.
So we'll go.
Okay.
We'll stick in the NFL, I guess. You did NFL for the who the hell is that? I've got NFL for you. So are you ready for your 3 hints?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Okay, Mitch is going to get a couple hints. He'll get some guesses. We'll give him some extra hints in between there. So to start off, Mitch, this 2-time Pro Bowler who played 15 years in the NFL for 3 different teams.
Okay.
His first 9 came in the NFC with the team that drafted him. Okay. He was selected.
Came in the NFC?
Yes. First 9 came in the NFC with the team that drafted him. Selected in the top 5 of the NFL draft. This cornerback played over 200 games and has 42 career interceptions. He was a unanimous All-American selection and Jim Thorpe Award winner in college and the highest selected draft pick in his school's history. And I'll give you and I'll give you the school in another hint. So we'll throw that in there, but we'll save that bit of information for now. We'll get a guess out there, then we'll throw some more. So
a top 5 pick, Jim Thorpe winner,
which is the best defensive back in college for those who aren't aware.
Right. How many career interceptions?
42 career interceptions.
42 career interceptions, played the first 9 years of his career with the team that drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
Was he? I might be wasting. No, I think this is a good guess to start. I'm going to go. I think he made more than 3 Pro Bowls, but I want to just get to the next. I'm going to go Champ Bailey.
Champ Bailey. It's a good first guess. Incorrect, but a good first place to start. We'll give you some more information.
Was he drafted by the Redskins or the Broncos, though?
I
think it was the Redskins, but
I don't remember.
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I don't remember which one he was drafted by, but
yeah.
No Champ Bailey on the first guess. We'll give you another hint, Mitch. This player, I'm going to give you 2 hints. The school that we're looking for, the school he played for, highest selected draft pick at the time, at least I didn't verify he still is, but at the time, highest selected draft pick in Kansas State history. So we're looking for a little wildcat there. This player spent most of his time in the NFC East. Remember, 15 years in the NFL with 3 different teams. His first 9 came in the NFC with the team that drafted him, and the majority of his career he spent in the NFC East.
Boy.
2-time Pro Bowler, by the way.
Yeah. NFC East. Was he No. I'm struggling because either he went to Miami or he went to K-State, and I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick myself. I'm gonna go Antrell Roll.
Antrell Roll. That is a great guess. It is incorrect. I'm gonna sure
look
he went
it
to
up.
Miami.
I think he went to Miami.
I feel like the Rolls went to Miami. I feel like all those guys went to Miami. It just feels right, but we may be wrong on that. But that's our revisionist history.
Yeah. Yes, he did go to Miami. Damn it!
University of Miami.
I knew it too. And
Antrell Roll. But a good guess. We're in a good vein here. You're guessing good. Your final guess and your final hint coming up. This player retired at the age of 39 years old in 2017.
Oh, okay. Retired at 39.
Mm-hmm. I'll go over the hints one more time for the folks and for you, Mitch, that we've got before we give you the final guess here. 2-time Pro Bowler who played 15 years for 3 different teams. His first 9 came in the NFC with the team that drafted him. He was selected in the top 5 of the NFL draft. He's a cornerback who played over 200 games and has 42 career interceptions. A unanimous All-American selection and Jim Thorpe Award winner in college, he was the highest selected draft pick in Kansas State's history, spent most of his time in the NFC East, and retired at the age of 39 in 2017. Mitch, do you have the final guess here for the Forgotten All-Star? Can he pull it off with the final guess here?
I don't know, Dallen. Oh my God.
This is a challenge. This is a challenging one. I think you could do it, but this is not,
I'm seeing Cowboys, though. I'm seeing Cowboys.
Yeah.
I know Andrew Rose is a giant.
You're seeing stars. That's good.
I don't think this is right. I don't know if he went to K-State. This makes sense. I'm going to go.
Do you want one final hit? I'll give you one little final hit.
Yeah, give me one more.
Started his career in the NFC, most of his time in the NFC East. Spent his final 3 seasons with an NFC North team.
Okay. Ooh.
Can he get it? Was that enough? Did it steer him off the path, or did it lead him in the right direction?
I don't know if it did or not. I'm going, the only other cornerback around that era that I can think of around that time that played long enough, to be honest with you, Terrence Newman.
Terrence Newman is the guess, and that is correct, my friend. He's done it reluctantly, thinking he's wrong, thinking he's defeated.
Whew.
You are not, my friend. You are correct. It is Terrence Newman. I told you that was a tricky one, and Mitch pulls out Terrence Newman. Well done.
That one was tough. That one was tough. I wasn't so sure.
We both brought it this week, I feel like, on these. These were not easy ones. Wow, well done, my friend. Yeah, Terrence Newman, who played 15 years for 3 teams, spent 9 years with the Cowboys, who drafted him in the top 5 in 2003, spent his last 3 years in Minnesota, also played in Cincinnati for 3 seasons in between that. So jumped over to the AFC, came back to the NFC. But yeah, 200 career games, 42 career interceptions, had a long career, couple Pro Bowls, made the Pro Bowl in 2007 and 2009 with Dallas. But, other than that, it's like, wasn't a huge player, wasn't always in the news, but obviously played a long time, very consistent, and had, a couple good enough seasons to get some recognition. So well done, my friend.
Thank you. I was not confident. I was not confident on that last one. I was like, that's the only cornerback that I could think of.
Yeah.
Like when I saw it. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was it.
That was well done.
Woo!
Man.
You.
Feeling good. Wow, we both pulled it off at the last with the skin of our teeth,
Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's keep bringing it. Like, that was fun. Let's keep bringing it week in, week out like that. That was a good time. Dallen, before we get into the next segment, I do have to give a quick shout out. Nana Bev. Hi. I know she's watching.
Yes. So. We got a comment. Yes. Hello. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. She apparently thinks we can hear her. So,
yeah.
Or she says hi to us while we're recording every week, and she's watching.
Love
so,
but
now I can say hi back. So, hi Nana. Good to hear from you. Glad you're watching. Thanks for tuning in. Dallen, we've had a little series going on over the last few shows of best quarterbacks by decade. We've had the 60s. We got groovy with it in the 60s, right? We got righteous with it in the 70s. Dallen, it's time to get bitching. Because this list is bitching. And on this week's edition of Mitch-Mo's Top 5 List of the Week, we're going to be doing the best quarterback of the 1980s.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this at the beginning of this podcast, but I cannot wait to hear this list because I'm sure it is stacked with talent. This was a great decade for quarterbacks. And like you mentioned earlier, it feels like it's just kind of getting started with the 80s, and it's just going to pick up from here.
It is, yes. And you know what, Dallen, it's very apparent even right out of the gate before we even get into the top 5, the honorable mentions, because I think we set a record here with honorable mentions. Let's run through them real quick. Doug Williams, Boomer Esiason, Danny White, Randall Cunningham, Joe Theismann, Warren Moon, Bernie Kosar, Neil Lomax, Jim Everett. I mean, that's just stopping short. I mean, there were plenty of guys through the 1980s that had some sort of impact on that. I didn't even mention Jim Kelly, who started his career in the 1980s. Of course, his impact comes a little bit later, maybe a little bit of foreshadowing. But look, just a stacked decade.
Yeah.
Is the 1980s. And Dallen, for the first time in the history of Mitch-Mo's top fives, we have a 5A and a 5B.
Wow.
Could not pick between them. Could not do it. And then the 5A might surprise you. So let's start out with our 5A, John Elway.
Yeah. Wow.
John Elway is going to be my 5A. If you look at his career stats from 1983, the year he was drafted his rookie year, through 1989, 64 and 33 as a starter, over 2,100 yards, 120 touchdowns, 114 interceptions, had the Super Bowl appearance in 86, I believe. Look, his impact comes later, right? And so, like, though he played the majority of the 80s, his real impact does not come until later in his career. And so that's probably what puts him down closer to the bottom of the list, the bottom of the top five. So 5A, we're going John Elway here.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense.
5B, I'm going Phil Simms. Phil Simms, quarterback, New York Giants, won a Super Bowl with the Giants in 86. Oh, so it wouldn't have been 86 that Elway was in the Super Bowl. I don't think, because I don't think the Giants played the Broncos in the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track here. Phil Simms, 65 and 45 as a starter, 2,400 yards, over 24,000 yards as a passer, 143 touchdowns, 123 interceptions. You put him. You win a Super Bowl, you get in the top five, right? If you win a Super Bowl in a specific decade, you become a top quarterback for that decade. That's just kind of one of the prerequisites to getting into this this hallowed ground, this short list of greatness. And though Phil Simms may not be considered an all-time great, he was one of the greatest quarterbacks of the 80s. So I'm giving the 5B nod to Phil Simms.
Yeah, I love that, Mitch. Also, you are correct. The Giants defeated the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl 21 in the 1986 season. So, yeah, perfect. You were correct. Don't doubt yourself. Come on, you know this.
I know. I'm sorry. That's silly at this point. You know what? It doesn't matter how much I cram into my brain. I still doubt myself, even when I just use something random out. I still doubt myself. I call it old man knowledge. Totally useless, but I guess it's useful for here. So
that's why we started the podcast. It's like, what else are we gonna do with all this information?
Yeah, we have to spew it out somewhere. So I guess it might as well be here. Number 4 on the list, an often forgotten guy, and I have to give him a shout out here. Dave Krieg. Dave Krieg was the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks from 1980, actually through the entire 1980s, 80 through 89, 57 and 37 as a starter, over 20,000 yards, almost 21,000 yards passing, 169 touchdowns to 116 interceptions. Look, the guy was really good for not being a guy that's often remembered. And he created a lot of magic with Steve Largent in the 80s. Who a lot of people consider one of the, when he retired, he was the all-time leading receiver. So one of the all-time great receivers for a lot of Seattle teams that at times weren't very successful, but still put up the big numbers. He actually led Seattle to their first 4 playoff appearances in franchise history. So I have to give the nod to Dave Krieg here at number 4.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, he was a 3-time Pro Bowler during the 80s, had a very strong run, and probably doesn't have the team success that a lot of these guys on the list will have, but individual success, I mean, he's up there. So I love that.
Yeah,
great mention there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Dave Krieg, he's got to get his ups. He's got to get his shout outs. Number 3 on the list, I'm going with a guy that would become a fixture in NFL analysts, a fixture in NFL commentary. After his career, primarily on CBS, I'm going with Dan Fouts. Dan Fouts, number 3 on the list. over 28,000 yards passing from 80 to 87, 172 touchdowns, 141 interceptions. He played in that Air Coryell offense that really just was one of the first offenses, kind of like what we saw with the Air Raid when they tried to introduce it in Arizona when Cliff Kingsbury brought that system. That's kind of what Coryell tried to bring to San Diego, and it worked. It worked exceptionally well. Started with John Hadel, but then would go to eventually that role would go over to Dan Fouts. And Fouts was he was the big arm guy for his era. So Dan Fouts going to be number 3 on the list.
Yeah, I love that. And Fouts is interesting because obviously he started his career in 1973, played throughout the 70s, but really doesn't come into his own and really find that big success until 1979, right about the turn of the of the decade. There gets his first Pro Bowl nod and then reels off, including that 79 season through 82. I mean, those 4 seasons, he's on fire at his peak, at his best, and putting up huge numbers. So right. I love that. That's a great pick.
And it was the first. He was also one of those guys too that, like, with the huge productive numbers comes the huge detrimental numbers as well.
Right.
I mean, massive interception numbers, but that was kind of the idea of the offense, is high risk, high reward. Mm-hmm. And he more often than not took advantage of that situation. So Dan Fouts definitely deserving of being on this list.
I just he threw for 4,800 yards in 1981.
What? Guys weren't.
That is wild.
If you threw over 3,500, you were considered God status in 1981.
Yeah, this
he
guy
was throwing for 4,800.
Yeah,
I mean that's
nuts.
crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, just that's a big number for 2023. If Justin Herbert throws for 4,800 yards next year, we're like, damn, he was slinging it. I mean, so to do that 40 years ago, that when running backs were still winning MVPs, that's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. Dan Fouts, number 3 on the list. Number 2. And I struggled with putting him here, but the numbers are so good that I had to give him the nod. I have to give Dan Marino the number 2 slot.
Mm-hmm.
And though he played the same amount of time as John Elway in the 1980s, Marino's numbers were just better. Mm-hmm. They just were, right? He had the 2 Marks, right? He had the Marks brothers. He had Mark Clayton and Mark Duper at his disposal in that offense, playing under Don Shula. The guy was he had the quickest release that anyone had ever seen in the NFL up to that point. Everything mechanically, physically, numbers wise was just perfect about this guy. And coming out of Pitt, he wasn't really considered the best quarterback to come out of the draft. It was John Elway. He was considered to kind of be, the 3rd or 4th best option when he came out of Pitt, because Pitt had a down year that year. So I think he threw more interceptions than touchdowns his senior year at Pitt. But what he was able to bring to the game as far as pure gaudy passing numbers is unmatched. 62 and 39 and it was his record throughout the 80s. Almost 28,000 passing yards, 220 touchdowns to 125 interceptions. Guy was ushered in almost the new era of the pure pocket passer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and burst onto the scenes in like a very almost like a Mahomes-esque way, right? I mean, his 2nd season, he wins the MVP, 23 years old, throwing for 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns in 1984. I mean, just
and gets to the Super Bowl.
And gets to the Super Bowl on top of it. I mean, that is Mahomes, literally. That was the Mahomes season. But I mean, it is crazy. Just immediately comes out of the gates and is lighting it up, and pretty much did that his whole career, obviously.
I mean, to put in perspective of how good that 84 season was when he threw 48 touchdowns and then set the then single season record. The next year he led the league in touchdown passes again and only threw 30.
Yeah.
I mean,
he
led
the league in passing yards with 900 less passing yards.
That's how he was, how far outperforming he was everyone else at the quarterback position. It was something that they had never seen. And maybe we thought we would never see again until Patrick Mahomes showed up and we have our generation's Dan Marino, but he just wins Super Bowls. So
hey, there you go. That's
no
jab.
A
very important caveat there. You know?
No jab at Dan Marino for not winning the Super Bowl, but
and
you didn't get there.
Is that maybe why he's number 2 and not number 1? Is that as simple as it is?
It really is as simple as that. When of course it's Joe Montana.
Yeah.
Right. Joe Montana is the best quarterback of the 80s, and it's not even a close competition. Almost 31,000 passing yards. So more passing yards than Marino and Fouts. 215 touchdowns, only was that 5 less than Marino, and fewer interceptions at only 107. He was a more efficient passer. He played in that West Coast offense, led by Bill Walsh. He had the greatest wide receiver, the greatest offensive player of all time in Jerry Rice at his disposal. He had John Taylor. He had Roger Craig. He had the defenses. He had the offensive line. He had everything around him to succeed, and he maximized what he was able to do with that team, winning 4 Super Bowls. So Joe Montana, by far and away, and that was the easiest of this is by far. Yeah. Actually, I started at 1 and worked down. When usually I start at the bottom and work up. I started at 1. I said, okay, let's go backwards from 1 because Joe Montana is clearly the best quarterback of the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, he was the GOAT before Tom Brady, right? And rightfully so. And when you look at his career, I mean, from 79 to 94. So the vast majority of it came in this decade of the 80s. And that's when he had his most success. And I love for him too, that it kind of culminates in his best season in 1989, where he wins the MVP, completes 70% of his passes on 386 attempts that year, and wins an MVP at 33 years old. And it's like to have had such a great decade, had so much success, and then still sort of end it with your best yet at that age of his career just goes to show how special he was. So I love it.
Remember when we were talking about Hank Aaron and consistency?
Mm-hmm.
Here it is for the football side of it. I mean, we talked about Dan Fouts throwing for 4,800 yards, Marino throwing for over 5,000. He was consistently right in the 3,500, 3,300 range every single year throughout the 80s, and still wound up throwing for more yards than the guys that had the gaudy seasons. The pinnacle of consistency. And I mean, the lower attempt numbers, the San Francisco 49ers were a run first team with Roger Craig. Mm-hmm. So this is just a testament to how much of a well-oiled machine the San Francisco 49ers were throughout the entire decade.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Joe Montana threw for over 30 touchdowns in a season just once. 31 touchdowns in 1987. So if that just doesn't show what kind of career he had and what he was known for, it wasn't these gaudy numbers. It was winning and accuracy. I mean, when you're completing 70% of your passes over a whole season, I mean, and he was consistently leading the league in completion percentage, well above 64, 65%. So Joe Montana, one of the greatest. So
one of my favorite Joe Montana stories is they're in the Super Bowl against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they're getting ready to go on a game-winning drive. And it's the biggest drive of the season, and everyone else is like on pins and needles, right? This is the biggest drive of the season, and Joe walks into the huddle, all cool, and he gets ready to call the play, and then he looks up and he goes, "Hey, that's John Candy," and he points over to the sideline. John Candy stayed on the sideline. He goes, "All right, let's go down and win this game." Calls the play. They go down. They win the Super Bowl. I love that story of just like how calm, cool, and collected this guy was.
Yeah.
Even in the highest pressure situation you could put a quarterback, he is just cool as a cucumber and gets the job done. Love it.
I love it. That's a great, what a great top 5. We've loved this series throughout the summer as Mitch continues to break down the quarterbacks by decade in NFL history. But roll through your top 5, or I guess your top 6, 5A, 5B this week. So roll through the top 5 one more time for the folks.
All right, so 5A was John Elway. 5B was Phil Simms. Number 4 was Dave Krieg. Number 3, Dan Fouts. Number 2, Dan Marino. And number 1, Joe Montana.
Yeah, great decade, the 90s. That's going to be a strong one. Obviously, you brought up Elway already. You're going to have Favre. You're going to have Young. You're going to have Jim Kelly. You're going to, that's 4 of the 5 right now. We haven't got to more names. So yeah, good luck.
I'm dreading I'm dreading the 90s and that decision making. Yeah. I can't even think about the 2000s right now. Like,
right.
That's going to be even worse. It's going to be even worse.
What a great series we've seen in the top 5 this summer. So we'll look forward to the 90s on the next episode. But Mitch, we got to wrap up the podcast here with our final segment. The big one this week, we're doing a tier ranking as we've done before on this podcast. And this week we are tier ranking the college football playoff contenders in 2023. We've selected 20 teams mutually that we've decided are considered the top contenders for the college football playoff this upcoming season. We're going to tier rank them based on their contender status. How much of a contender are they, or how much of a dark horse are they for this? So very excited for this, to look forward to the college football season. And also, Mitch, to do this exercise in the final year of the 14 playoff, because this is the final year. We'll see only 4 teams in the college football playoff. In 2024, it'll expand to 12. And most of these teams will have access and will make it and have an opportunity. So for only this final season is it so limited, and kind of makes it more fun to have this conversation. So looking forward to this.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. And this is completely guttural feelings, right? I mean, this is just kind of what we feel right now. It doesn't have to be super analytical. We can make our points to debate, or really push for a team we really are buying into, but there's no really way of knowing how this team is going to shape up really until camp gets over and we get closer to week 0 at the end of August and early September, where we really know where these teams stand. So this will be a fun way, kind of like almost like a way too early to kind of get ourselves prepped up for the college football season.
100%. Definitely a way too early. Definitely a chance for us to, maybe make some takes on some teams that we think are going to be, more competitive than maybe the rest of the college football world looks at it. So let's get into this here. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter live here, you can see our tier rankings on the video. So if you're listening back and you're like, hey, the visual would be kind of fun, well, then pause the podcast, jump over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/thesportshour, guys, and you can find our live from Wednesday night and come watch it and follow along here, because it's a little more fun visually. But we're going to start this off 5 tiers on the tier ranking list. And Mitch, let's start off in the SEC. How does that sound?
Let's do that.
All right, let's start at the top with the defending national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously a college football playoff contender in 2023, and obviously an S-tier, top-tier playoff contender?
I think so. Kirby Smart runs a really good program. There's a lot of questions about, can Carson Beck fill the shoes that Stetson Bennett left behind? But you know that they're going to have an exceptionally strong defense. Carson Beck's going to have weapons to throw to. They'll be strong at running back. They'll have Brock Bowers still there.
Yeah.
The strong wide receiver core. They'll be fine. It's really the question mark is at the quarterback spot. Can Carson Beck fill those shoes that Stetson Bennett left behind? But I still think that they're absolutely a top tier contender for the college football playoff.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the biggest question for Georgia, is that quarterback position. How will that look when you're replacing a starter like Stetson Bennett, who was so consistent for them, won 2 national titles? Listen, no college football team ever has 3-peated as national champion. So just keep that in mind this year. They've gone back to back, but can Georgia make history, be the first college football program ever to 3-peat as national champions? It will be a tough task with a new quarterback, but certainly in the top contender tier. Mitch, let's go to your Alabama Crimson Tide, who I will say, for your sake, is an S-tier team. I think Alabama has to be considered in that S tier with the amount of talent they have. Do you disagree?
I have to be honest. I do disagree. I disagree. I think that they're in that A tier.
A tier. Okay, we'll go A tier. A tier's fine.
And it's not a question of what can Nick Saban do with the roster, right? He's had the luxury of having the top recruiting class every year for the last 15 years, right? With Bryce Young gone, and they bring in Tyler Buckner. There's a huge question mark at quarterback. Is it going to be Jalen Milroe? Is it going to be Ty Simpson? Is it going to be Tyler Buckner? I honestly think it's going to be Buckner, because you wouldn't bring him in from Notre Dame just to sit him on the bench. So I think that's probably the direction that they go. I'm not totally sold on Buckner. I like the team around him. I know that the defense will be solid, because that's Nick Saban's, that's his MO. But as far as them being at that top tier contender year in and year out, I think they're a step below Georgia right now. They're a step behind, and they need to find a way to get back into that conversation of being the runaway, locked and loaded. They're winning the SEC West no matter what. I just don't think that they're in that position right now with the questions at quarterback.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. And, in a very similar vein, like Georgia, where they're sort of quite, listen, we've got this great team. We got great talent. We always have great talent, but quarterback position matters in college football. That's really like who takes you to the top, is who's got the best college quarterbacks, right? And so,
and don't get me wrong,
when you don't even know who the starter is at this point, there's going to be a question about how legitimate you're going to be next year, and trusting that, it could work out. Buckner could be good enough to lead them to a college football playoff, sure, but it's not a guarantee, not the same way that it was with Bryce Young,
But don't get me wrong, I hate Georgia. I hate Auburn and I hate Georgia, but Georgia has the better built team right now. Yeah. They just do. Yeah. And so Alabama has a couple steps to catch up to get back to that spot.
All right. Mitch, sticking in the SEC, we've got two other teams from the SEC among our top 20. We'll go to LSU, who actually played in the SEC title game. Isn't that right? It wasn't Alabama, Georgia last year. It was Alabama, LSU.
No, because LSU won the East.
That's right. Yeah. So, team in what's his face? You got the coach from Notre Dame, Brian Kelly, comes down.
Brian Kelly, yes.
Embarrasses himself. People are like, oh God, what's LSU going to be? But they were really good last year. Again, SEC title game, 10-4 on the season. Bring back Jaden Daniels. He decides to return for this season. So what do we make of LSU? I don't see them on
did you not download
on here?
Uh-oh. Yeah, I don't see it either. I think you might have missed it.
I don't see it either. I definitely downloaded it, so we're going to work on that again.
Okay, well, while you're doing that.
Let's discuss LSU.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brian Kelly, coming into a program for the first year is always going to be a struggle, right? And Brian Kelly, he got roasted for putting on the fake Southern accent. And, he's coming from kind of uppity Notre Dame to the nitty gritty LSU Tigers, right? It's a completely different culture than what it is at Notre Dame. And he kind of felt like the new kid at the school that doesn't quite fit in with everyone, right? Yeah. Now he's in a situation where he's been there for a year. He's starting to build this program the way that he wants to. Jaden Daniels is coming back. I have a lot of confidence in this kid. I think he's super talented. But the SEC is so tough to compete with when it comes to the Georgias, the Alabamas, that I think they kind of stumbled their way in to an SEC East championship last year, and they kind of tripped and fell their way into winning that division. So for me, I'm going to put them, I think they're talented enough to be an A tier. I feel kind of like that A to B tier is kind of where I feel more comfortable with them.
Let's go B tier. I feel good with LSU at B tier because I am with you. I think in a lot of ways they sort of lucked into, that SEC title game, and we sort of maybe view them higher as a result than maybe they deserve. But significant to get Jaden Daniels come back. And he was a guy at Arizona State who came in with a lot of promise and talent and never materialized with the Sun Devils, but came to LSU and really shined. And we see that in transfers, right? Oh, they find a new situation. All of a sudden they're flourishing. And now he chooses to come back instead of going to the NFL. So can that, how much more can he improve? How much better could he be? And I think that's sort of the one factor there. If Jaden Daniels really takes the next step, has Hendon Hooker-esque season, maybe not at the full like true Heisman winner potential like Hooker was for most of last season, but if he could be in that realm, then yeah, LSU could be a playoff team. But I
Well,
think it's more projection than it is real. So that's why I like the B tier.
And can LSU compete with like talented teams? I mean, they got
Right.
blown out by Tennessee and Georgia last year. So
Yep.
like, can Brian Kelly get that program to take that extra step to compete with top tier programs and not get embarrassed in these big blowout wins against big time programs?
Yeah, for sure. All right, Mitch, Tennessee, the final SEC team here. Obviously, they were one of the biggest stories of college football last year with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and that team really bursting on the scene. Those guys are gone, but they do bring back a lot of talent, and they've got Joe Milton as the quarterback, who will a lot of promise from him, but will he be everything that people thought? I think there's a lot of questions for me on Tennessee. I'm curious where you stand, because you did advocate for them on this list. So where are your feelings on the Volunteers?
Well, first of all, I have to correct myself. LSU did not win the East; they won the West. So
won the West, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yes, but yeah,
I had them in the wrong division.
You're good.
But yes, Tennessee. I love Joe Milton, and I think he did a fantastic job filling in for Hendon Hooker when he went down with his injury. Josh Heupel has really built a super competitive program. They're recruiting well. The big question is, can you step up and beat Georgia? And I don't know if they're quite there yet, but I think they'll be competitive enough, and they might luck their way or kind of somehow get their way. You know, they might be Georgia's one loss and an upset. So I want to put them in the B tier next to LSU. I think that they always have a shot. But they're going to have to figure out how to get past Georgia for that SEC East title. They're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, I guess I see it from this. I'm cool with B tier. I was feeling more C, but I'm cool with B tier for this, because I do think you make a good point. As an SEC team, if they beat Georgia, and they have one or two losses, then they're in the playoff, right? I mean, just for being in the SEC and beating the teams they'd have to beat to get there. So just that in of itself makes them be more of a legitimate contender than other conferences. So I'm cool with B tier. I'm a little more down. I think Tennessee's going to take a step back. I think they'll be 9 wins and still really good, but I don't think I think people will catch on to them a little bit this year, and we'll see some regression. But a lot of it depends on that quarterback, and if he shows the promise that we've seen, I mean, Tennessee could be just as good as they were last year, 100%. So,
and as we kind of wrap up the SEC here, it really, the tale of the story, for all four of these teams is you have to beat the teams that matter. Yeah. Right. You're better than the, 85% of your schedule, but that other 15% that, like the two big games you have to win, you have to get those done if you want to be playing for a conference championship at the end of the year.
So what you're saying is the SEC title is going to come down to who wins between Georgia and Tennessee and who wins between Bama and LSU, basically.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
A lot of times, I don't know if they all play this year, but still, I mean, that's a lot of feels like that's what it comes down to in these, especially in the SEC with how top heavy it is.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And speaking of top heavy, Mitch, even a more top heavy conference, let's go to the Big Ten, who has 4 contenders on our list for the college football playoff. And we'll start with Michigan. Michigan got to be S tier. College football playoff team last year, bringing back J.J. McCarthy. I think the real questions for Michigan aren't can they make the college football playoff, but can they win it? Right. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. I think they have enough talent, and the Big Ten is easy enough that, as long as they win the big game, they're pretty much a lock. So it comes down to, is J.J. McCarthy really going to take that leap that you need to see and be the type of quarterback that can lead you to and win a national championship? I'm not sold on McCarthy. I'm not the biggest JJ McCarthy fan, but that Michigan team, I think, is still extremely talented and definitely an S tier, in my opinion.
Jim Harbaugh, I think, though, and I agree with you. I think they're an S tier team because they'll win 12 games, right? They'll be 11-1, 12-1, however many games they got on their schedule. Jim Harbaugh brought over a disease, though, when he took this job at Michigan. And it's a disease that doesn't let you win the biggest games of the year. He just doesn't. They just don't do it. And, they've been to the college football playoffs multiple times, and they just don't get it done. So that's my question is, can they find that hurdle? They bring back JJ McCarthy. They got Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Those will be kind of the three big names on offense. That cornerback is it Will Johnson, I think is coming back. He'll be an All-American threat. This is a really, really good program, but Jim Harbaugh seems to shit the bed in the big games, and the decision-making kind of goes out the window. So I think that it's really indicative on how good the coaching is for Michigan. They have all the talent in the world, but can they get it done in the biggest, most crucial moments this year?
Yeah, they're definitely going to want redemption from the loss to TCU in the college football playoff last season. Mitch, let's go to the Ohio State, who, in my opinion, is also an S-tier team. I know that they are going to be bringing out a new quarterback this year, replacing CJ Stroud, like a lot of these teams replacing a quarterback. But Ohio State, I think, is another one of those programs that consistently competes, has more than enough talent, also has the best player in college football in Marvin Harrison Jr., and that certainly doesn't help. Travion Henderson in the backfield, and all the talent on that Buckeyes team. So I think, and much like Michigan, I mean, it just kind of comes down to, are you going to win the big game? If you win that matchup between Michigan and Ohio State at the end of the season, you're going to the playoff. It's basically just, as simple as that. If you don't, you're probably not. And that's what happened with, or did they make it last year? I think they snuck in. Right, with the USC loss. I'm trying to remember who snuck in, but either way, I have USC in the. I have Ohio State in the S.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Yeah. They did sneak in. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I had to think about that one too.
No, that's why I was like, I remember that. Right. So, are we good with S tier? Are we good with S tier on Ohio State?
I'm good with S tier. Okay. I think you always have to put him in the conversation. Yeah. They're bringing in Kyle McCord, the junior, to be the replacement for CJ Stroud. Just an unproven commodity. Yeah. So there's going to have a lot of proof. They clearly have the best wide receiver in the country right now in Marvin Harrison Jr. That's going to be playing that X receiver for them. So McCord definitely has a huge weapon to get the ball to. And Ohio State's going to probably do what they always do, which is score a ton of points. Can the defense keep up and keep pace? I think they'll be just fine. I think I see them as a 1 or 2 loss team, maybe getting into the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there, Mitch. Penn State. Let's go to Penn State here in the Big Ten. Rose Bowl team last year, defeating Utah in the Rose Bowl, 11 wins, and they are replacing their starter, but a lot of hype for the guy they're bringing in, Drew Aller, who will replace Sean Clifford, the bane of my existence. Just kidding.
But, you hate Sean Clifford.
I do. I hate that guy. I'd rather give me the big red dog back there over him. But Drew Aller is coming in with a lot of promise, and Penn State is coming into this season with a lot of hype as a sleeper playoff team. I've seen a lot of people mention them as a team that can break out. I am not so sold. I am not quite there. For me, I feel pretty strong in like the B tier, that they're definitely in that mix. They're a solid team, but they've got to get past, much like we talked about the Tennessees and the LSU, you're looking up and you're like, can we get past Michigan and Ohio State? Because you're going to have to get there. And I think that's my hesitation with Penn State. So I'm feeling like a B tier.
Yeah. Yeah. I can get down with B tier. I can.
What are you thinking?
Well, Drew Aller is highly,
or are you thinking A?
No, I think B is the right spot. I think Drew Aller is he's highly touted.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot to be excited about this kid. Nick Singleton is going to be returning at running back. They have things to be excited about. Manny Diaz is going to be their defensive coordinator, who has had many successful years as the defensive coordinator at the college ranks. So that's a huge add for them. This is a team they're on the precipice. They're just not quite there yet. I think they'll be competitive. They'll be fun. They'll probably be a top 12 team at the end of the year. But as far as being a playoff contender, I'm with you. I'm not quite sold on Penn State.
Yeah. All righty, Mitch. Last Big Ten team here is Wisconsin, and we threw Wisconsin in here. I think one part of this is, listen, this is going to be the final year of divisions in the Big Ten. When USC and UCLA join in 2024, it'll be a divisionless Big Ten. So all of this Michigan versus, Ohio State and Penn State having to go through all of that, that's not going to matter come 2024. But in 2023, it'll still matter. You're going to have divisions. So when you look at the Big Ten West, kind of like the SEC West, it's kind of open. There's some opportunities there. Who's going to emerge this year in the Big Ten West? Who could potentially make some noise? For us, it's Wisconsin with Luke Fickell coming over as the new head coach. He brings in the transfer Tanner Mordecai, who we're very high on, one of my 5 college quarterbacks to know this year. And I expect big season for Wisconsin. Are they going to make the playoff? Probably not. They are one of the more longer shots in my mind. I think they're a D-tier team because we are talking about a first-year head coach with this program. Luke Fickell had a lot of success in Cincinnati, but he's taken over a 7-win program in Wisconsin that is still fairly devoid of a lot of the skill position talent you need to compete at the highest level. They got by a lot of times in Wisconsin with great run games and great defenses under Paul Chryst, but it's a new era, and I think there will be some adjustment. But there's a world where they fly off the gate and the offense is humming and they win 9 or 10 games and they get to a Big Ten championship game and you're like, oh man, watch out for Wisconsin. So I love them as a dark horse. I love them as a D-tier team.
As much as I want to put them in the C tier because I am high on Wisconsin making a big leap, I think D is the appropriate place to put them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And you mentioned Luke Fickell coming over. He turned that Cincinnati program around, went 57-18 with them over his tenure. They bring in Tanner Mordecai. They bring in Phil Longo from UNC to be the new offensive coordinator. The defense is always solid in Wisconsin. That's like kind of the Big Ten MO is like bunches and loads of good defenses in the Big Ten. But I really think that this is the team that I am highest on to make the leap into a double-digit win season. I think that they can really go out and win 10 games and get into a Big Ten championship game. I won't be shocked if they'll be there because I am that high on Wisconsin to make that leap. So as much as I want to put them in the C tier, the D tier, because we still have to kind of see it to believe it.
Yeah, I'm with you there, though. I am confident in Wisconsin this season. Mitch, let's jump over to the ACC. We've got 3 teams from the ACC. Let's start with UNC at the top. I think for me, first and foremost, UNC gets the nod here, and they did win the Coastal Division. They were in the ACC championship game last year, 9-5 record. But to me, this just comes down to simply having Drake May. If you have a great college quarterback, you are going to be in the mix. Right. And Drake May is not only just a good college quarterback, he is a really, really good college quarterback, could be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft in 2024. So I think for that reason, UNC has to be here. With the losses that they've had on the staff, with the departure of some of the talent that they had, I really don't think this team is a legitimate contender. I think they're getting this nod for me with respect for Drake May and the fact that a good quarterback can take you a long way. So for me, they're more C, maybe even D tier. I'm curious to see where you sit on North Carolina.
Yeah. Kind of in the same vein as Wisconsin. I really want to give him that nod, but D feels more appropriate.
Okay.
Drake May is exceptionally talented, right? I mean, and when you look at what they did last year, right? They got themselves into the top 15 in the country before losing their last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was a really, really talented team that was primed to make a playoff run if they kept winning, right? We had talked about them as, oh my God, if they keep winning football games, they might sneak their way in somehow. Clearly that wasn't the case, but I think the play of Drake May will carry them enough to a top 25 ranking. I don't think that's going to carry them to a college football playoff, though.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough task with some of the. You just mentioned Phil Longo. I mean, offensive coordinator leaving the program. That's gonna have an effect on May, on that offense, and we may see a step back. But with that much talent in his arm, they're going to be a contender for sure. Mitch, Clemson, a classic contender, usually in the S or A tiers at the top, but. A little shaky last year, 11-win season, but DJ Uiagalelei, did not look good. He transfers to Oregon State, and then, by the way, gets drafted in the MLB draft by my Los Angeles Dodgers in the 20th round. So shout out future LA Dodger DJ Uiagalelei. Kind of hoping the Oregon State season doesn't work out so we can see him on the diamond. Threw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball in high school, so there's that. But now you got Clemson with Cade Klubnik, who took over as the starter last year and showed well in replacement for DJ Uiagalelei, but not great. So you're looking for more out of this position. And I am not convinced on Clemson. I'm not going to lie, Mitch. I think Clemson's getting a lot of name recognition hype. And listen, there's a lot of talent. Will Shipley is one of the best running backs in the country. He's going to be able to put up big numbers and carry the offense in a lot of ways. There's so much talent on the defense. They recruit so well that they're, competitive, and they'll probably win 10 games in a weak ACC. But I don't really see Clemson as a legit contender. I'm kind of leaning B or C tier. I'm curious where you're at with the Tigers.
Oh, I was thinking more D.
Oh, okay.
And it's because Cade Klubnik, man, there were some games where he just looked bad.
Yeah.
I mean, really bad. As good as Will Shipley is, if you don't have a guy that can deliver the ball outside of outside of the running back position, you don't have much. The defense struggled at times. They had that bad loss in South Carolina at the end of the year, and South Carolina is expected to be better this year with Spencer Rattler returning and coming back with more confidence. I'm not confident in what Clemson has to offer. I think that losing DJ Uiagalelei was the worst thing that could happen to him. And moving on to Cade Klubnik. So for me, they're more of a D tier. I think they
can we go C? Are we good with C tier?
I'll compromise on C.
Okay, because
I think this is a team that could
go ahead.
This is a team that could win 10 games, but also easily only win 7 in my mind.
I think what puts Clemson maybe above the Wisconsin and North Carolina is just the amount of talent on those teams, right? As rosters, they're deep with talent. The biggest question for Clemson is the quarterback position, which clearly is at a very bad spot right now, and they need to figure that out. And I am with you. I'm not sold that Cade Klubnik is just suddenly the answer, but there's just so much talent on the team that if the quarterback is at least above average to good, they could be in that mix. So we'll go with C tier. C tier is okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll compromise on that one.
Okay. ACC, the final team we have here is Florida State, the Seminoles, Mitch.
How'd you say that?
Florida. Hey, you got it. Florida State. The Seminoles down there in Tallahassee. 10 wins last year in the ACC. Was not able to pass Clemson there in the conference, so was not able to, or in the division, so didn't make the ACC title game. But bring back Jordan Travis, who was mentioned in our quarterbacks to know before this season. I'm very high on Florida State, Mitch. I think Florida State is a legitimate contender this year. I think they are the favorite in the ACC and a very weak ACC. And because of that weak ACC, I think there's a really easy path for them to win like 11 games. I mean, they can walk out of conference play with 1 loss. And if they're 12-1 ACC champion, they're going to be a playoff team. It'll be hard to leave them out if they're a 1 or 2 loss conference champion, even out of the ACC. I feel like A tier. I feel pretty happy with A tier for Florida State. I could argue and be okay with the B tier if you had a case there, but where are you at?
I'm kind of on board with you.
I'm good. I didn't want to argue it.
I love Jordan Travis. I think Mike Norvell coming into his 4th season, has all the pieces in the right places. And this could be it. And you know what? It's all timing too, right? Mm-hmm. As the rest of the conference continues to get weaker, Florida State has only gotten stronger, and they're put themselves in a position where like you said, they could win 11 games and get themselves into a playoff contender spot. So I think A tier is fitting for Florida State, which seems weird because they've been shit the last 5 years or something like that.
Yeah,
they have been a non-factor.
Ever since the Jameis era, right, where they were actually in national titles and stuff, they pretty much fell off, right? More or less from significance. But it does feel like a bit of a resurgence this year for Florida State. Timing is a great point that you bring up there with just sort of how the conference is going. Also, for those who don't know, watch out for Johnny Wilson, number 14 for Florida State. 6'7", 237-pound wide receiver, plays on the outside. Could be a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick in the draft. But guy is wild to watch. So, if you haven't watched Florida State, keep an eye out for him.
6'7", 234?
At a wide receiver. He is not a tight end like that they're playing at wide receiver.
That's a power forward. What are you talking about?
Huge. Yeah, apparently they should be throwing him on the basketball team. Mitch, that is it for the ACC. Let's go to the Pac-12, where we have 5 teams in this list.
We got talks about the Pac-12.
Yeah, let's start here, and let's start with the team at the top of the conference last year, and will probably be definitely the favorite heading into this year, and that's USC. USC is definitely a playoff contender. I would say, I'll let you go first here. Because I think they're top 2 tiers in my opinion, but what are we thinking?
I'm putting them S tier.
Really? Okay.
I think they have to be contenders. Like I said, in my top 5 of college programs with the most approved this year, USC was number 1. If they put Caleb Williams in the position that they're in right now, with Lincoln Riley and this offense that is rolling, and the team that looked so good and primed to make the playoffs last year just barely missed out on it. If they don't make a college football playoff, it's a disappointment this year. They have to get it done. I'm not saying that those are the only 4 teams at the top, but USC, it better be one of those teams that gets in, because if they don't, complete disappointment and letdown for the USC Trojans this year.
Yeah. I think that's very fair, Mitch. I think that's very fair for USC. I'm really good with S tier because, like you said, they were the 5th seed. They were a Pac-12 championship game win away from being a playoff team and having a shot last year. So, and obviously with Caleb Williams, the most electric quarterback in the country, and the defending Heisman winner. Yeah, S tier for USC. I'm good with it. I'm very good with it. Let's go to the actual Pac-12 champions, though, from last year, and back-to-back Pac-12 champs in the Utah Utes, who fell to Penn State in the Rose Bowl last year, but bring back Cam Rising at quarterback, and didn't really lose a ton of talent in the draft. Lost some players, but didn't bringing back a lot of talent from last year's team, who sort of almost feels like they stumbled their way into the Rose Bowl last year. Like they stumbled their way in the Pac-12 championship game. Had, I think, Washington or Oregon won that last game of the season, it would have been them instead of Utah. But Utah gets there, they win it. How much of a contender are they this year when it comes to the rest of the conference and the rest of the country, for that matter? I've got some thoughts. Obviously, I know a lot about the Utes living here in Salt Lake, and we cover a lot of them here on our local sports station, but I'm curious your thoughts on Utah.
Well, I think they're underappreciated. I think that this team is year in and year out a competitor for that Pac-12 championship, and that's been, that's been apparent over the last 2 years when they do actually win that Pac-12 championship, when no one's actually taken them to do it. I think Kyle Whittingham has put together a great program. I think they'll compete again for that Pac-12 championship. As far as getting into the college football playoff, I mean, if we talk about USC being one of those teams that should get in, it should be one of those teams that's competing. Utah's got to be one of those teams kind of close, near to that. But I'm going to put them in the B tier, I think, is where I feel they're best fit. Just because they're not on the same level as Alabama, but they're also not as far down as the Clemsons and Wisconsins and North Carolinas.
Yeah. I think if there was a tier between A and B, that would be the perfect spot to place the Utes, because they are A-. Yeah, they've been right around that mix or near the top 5, right, when they're at their best, but they just haven't really got it done. And maybe roster-wise, they don't have the talent of a lot of these top-tier programs, but they've got a great culture. They've got a winning culture, and they have got it done. I mean, they've just proven to get it done. So it feels weird to doubt them, so we probably shouldn't. I'm totally cool with B tier. Feel very comfortable there. We've got some good Pac-12 teams, though. Are we going to place any higher than Utah? We'll see. Let's start with Oregon, Mitch. Let's start with the Ducks, who went 10-3 last year. Bo Nix had the breakout season after disappointing in Auburn for so many years. And now, I mean, coming into this season, I see a lot of people talking about him as the 3rd best quarterback prospect in this upcoming draft, behind Drake May and Caleb Williams. There's a lot of hype on Oregon, a lot of hype on Bo Nix now. Can they live up to that hype, though? That's the biggest question. I think Oregon is a solid B tier team for me. A lot of talent. They could be in the mix. They should be in the mix if everything goes right, but it just doesn't always necessarily go right. And it's still sort of TBD. So I kind of feel like B tier with Oregon right next to Utah.
Well, you mentioned that, it just kind of always doesn't go right for them. Like they should be but it never turns out that way. Is kind of why I'm leaning C tier a little bit for Oregon. It's not a knock against Dan Lanning or anything that he's done over there. They have a very fine program, but when they need things to go right, they just don't. They just don't. They had an opportunity to beat Georgia at the beginning of the year last year. They blew that. And I mean, they went on and won 10 games in a row after that or whatever it was. I think they lost their last one of the season. So, they had opportunities to make it right, but they didn't perform in the biggest game. So, I mean, I'm okay with B tier, but I kind of lean a little bit more C tier.
Yeah, I will say this in argument of Oregon, because you're right. And I think that narrative has been true. But they did show us something last year. I think they deserve some credit. Yeah, they got absolutely smoked by Georgia in the opening game of the season. But after that, they were incredible. And the two games that they lost to Washington, number 24 ranked Washington, 37-34 in November, and then lost their final regular season game, chance to get to the Pac-12 championship game. They lost on the road at Oregon State, 34-38. So they lost both those two games by 7 points combined, one-score games coming down to the wire, other than an absolute thrashing by Georgia, who won the national championship. So Oregon showed us a lot last year, right? I mean, they showed us a lot. So I think for that benefit of the doubt, I say we go B tier. We cool with that?
Yeah, because I guess if they don't lose those two games, then they're in a top 10
the Pac-12
conversation.
Championship.
Yeah, they're in a playoff conversation.
They go to the Rose Bowl.
One-loss team. Yeah,
they'd go to the Rose Bowl if USC didn't. So I mean,
okay, I'm cool with B. Yeah.
Okay, I love it. All right, Mitch, Washington.
You talked me into that one. I was so set on C tier for them too. I
love it.
Well done on your part.
All right. Well, Washington is up next. This is one of the most intriguing teams to me this year. Such a breakout. Finished 8th in the final AP poll, 11-2 on the season with the breakout from Michael Penix and Kalen DeBoer's first season. But can they repeat that this year? Penix is back. They've got a stacked wide receiver room with Romeo Aduns, Jalen McMillan. So much talent on this offense. They're going to put out big numbers. They've got talent on defense as well. I think Washington is legit. In fact, Mitch, in my opinion, I think Washington is the second best team in the Pac-12 and the best threat to get to the college football playoff outside of USC. So in my thoughts, as we sit right now, I think Washington should be like maybe A tier, probably B tier. Where are you at on the Huskies?
I have a ton of confidence in Kalen DeBoer and that program that he is putting together over in Washington. I think Michael Penix will give Caleb Williams a hell of a run for the Heisman.
Ooh.
Hell of a run. People shit on the Pac-12. This is going to be a competitive conference this year.
Mm-hmm.
Super competitive. Washington's an A-tier team in my mind.
Yes.
They're right up there with Alabama and Florida State as
Love it.
serious competitors. And I mean, if I as an Alabama fan, if let's say we get into college football playoff and Washington gets in from the Pac-12, I don't want to run into Washington in the semifinal. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, based on paper right now, way too early predictions. I don't want to see Washington. That's a scary matchup for me.
100%. Yeah, I mean, Washington was incredible last year in that first season, and the really the breakout for Michael Penix, and they have 2 losses on the season at UCLA, at Arizona State. Both of those came, September, October, and then they won their final 7 games of the season. So this is a team that ended the season on a hot streak and has some unfinished business. So this is a team that's hungry in 2023. So yeah, watch out for the Huskies, folks. It's going to be a big year for Washington. The final Pac-12 team, Mitch, Oregon State. Talked about DJ Uiagalelei coming over there. This is a great program that Jonathan Nolan has built there in Oregon State. Great defenses. They run the ball extremely well. Just a tough team. They're kind of sort of building a mold similar to like Utah it feels like, in that sort of identity in the Pac-12. And I kind of like that. More of an underdog. Hey, you can overlook us. That's fine. We'll take care of business. I like them here as a dark horse candidate. I think they're probably a D tier, but I like them as a dark horse candidate because if DJ can put it together at Oregon State, and listen, we saw Hendon Hooker, we saw Jaden Daniels, we've seen so many transfer quarterbacks, right? Bo Nix, guys with a lot of potential that came into college, failed at their program, found a new place, and are able to put it together. So if DJ Uiagalelei could do that, I mean, they could be a legitimate college football playoff contender because he could be that type of quarterback. But the D tier, I mean, they're kind of a real deep sleeper, right?
C tier.
C tier?
C tier.
You feel better about Oregon State over UNC and Wisconsin as far as chances to make the college football playoff?
I do. I think that they bring back comparable defenses. I think they bring back almost all of its offensive line. DJ Uiagalelei is going to be well protected. And let's say he goes down. They're still bringing back Ben Gulbranson, who played well for him last year. And they're going to have a great guy that's going to be that backup to DJ. So, Oregon State's not going to be put in a tight spot when it comes to the quarterback position, which is where they excelled, right? Gulbranson had a good year along with the defense. Oregon State, to me, is right up there with kind of the Clemsons of, they could luck their way into, double-digit wins, or not even luck their way, but they're capable of winning double-digit wins and putting themselves in possibly a conference championship matchup.
Yeah, I like it. I'll go with you. We'll put Oregon State in the C tier. It's a team with a lot of talent. We just kind of overlook, and especially in the Pac-12, I think they'll be overlooked this year, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they were in the Pac-12 championship game this year. I wouldn't. So right. I like it. Mitch. 4 teams left. We got 3 teams from the Big 12, and we'll start there with the favorite in the Big 12, the preseason favorite, Texas, the Longhorns, Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian. Is Texas back? Is this finally the year that they put it together? Mitch, I don't believe in Texas. I really don't. I mean, obviously, there's so much talent on this team. That's unquestioned. They have the best quarterback room in the country. That's unquestioned. But, are they actually, almost like Oregon, will they actually put it together? Is Steve Sarkisian going to be good enough to win and be a college football playoff contender? I'm B tier on Texas. I think they're very, very solid. I think they should be the favorite out of the Big 12. I'm cool with all that, but I don't actually believe in them getting it done. I think this is a lot of projection and a lot of respect for Texas's history and not for maybe the team that's on the field in 2023.
I think they're one of those teams where everything could go just great for them, right? And they live up to the hype. And also one of those teams, 8 games into the year, Sark's gone.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I think if they really want to reach their full potential, they need to find someone other than Steve Sarkisian to be running that program. I mean, he was brought in to change the culture and to completely revamp this. And I know that in a college program, that's hard to do in the short term, right? It takes time to be able to do that. But now with the transfer portal, things like that can be done a lot quicker. And there hasn't been a whole lot of movement from Texas out of the transfer portal this offseason to try to get that done. So I think that if they start off the year, 1-4 or 2-3, Sark might be on the hot seat and might be getting ready to get out. So I think B tier though, because in a best case scenario, they are a 10-11 win team. Yeah. And we're talking about them competing for maybe a Big 12 championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at least the conversation for the college football playoff, if they were to win 11 games and be the Big 12 champs, Sure. So I think that's fair. Mitch, Kansas State, probably the other heavy favorite in the Big 12 this season. They are the defending Big 12 champs after defeating TCU in the Big 12 championship game last year. And they, bring back quarterback Will Howard, who played, a large part of last season alongside Adrian Martinez, right? But Will Howard will be the guy this year.
Wait, Adrian Martinez isn't playing college football anymore, right?
No, actually, yeah, it turns out he is.
I mean, he's played for 14 years, but it's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he tried to sneak onto campus, and they were like, "All right, guys, you're 33 now. It's time to go." But I think Kansas State is a really, really good team. My way too early pick for the Big 12 is Kansas State. over Texas. I would think Kansas State's going to repeat as Big 12 champions this year. I think they have a very talented roster and a good enough quarterback to compete. I don't think they are national title contenders. I think they could be like a sneaky dark horse, maybe a little bit. I think B or C tier with Kansas State. I think talent-wise, I think they could be a B tier, but I'm also cool with putting them in the C tier as well.
Yeah, I think C tier is a good fit for K-State. Deuce Vaughn's gone, but Chris Kleeman will be a good filler for a good guy to replace Deuce Vaughn. The defense should be typically tough. That's typical of K-State. So they'll be a solid team, but I don't think that they're any closer to being a contender than Clemson or at Oregon State. I think they're kind of in that sneaky dark horse area.
Fair enough. All right, Mitch. Final Big 12 team, TCU. The Horned Dogs, who, history last year. What an incredible run by TCU to the national title game, losing to Georgia. And yeah, they're included in this. And I'm not going to lie, I did not include them in my initial draft of teams when we did this. Just because they lost so many pieces from that national championship team. And it's just going to be a challenge to replace that and sort of see how, that all plays out. Max Duggan is gone. He had the huge season. Kendre Miller, Quentin Johnston. I mean, you could go to the defense and look at all the guys that are gone. A lot of leaders gone. They're replacing a lot of production. But Sonny Dykes is building something. TCU had one of the best off seasons in the transfer portal of any college football program, brought in a ton of talent. So I think they replaced it decently well, but I just don't know about them as true contenders. They're C or D tier for me this season. What do you say on the Horned Frogs?
I think D is appropriate.
Okay.
Because they lost so much. I'm a believer in Sonny Dykes and what he's doing over at TCU, the program that he's building, but they lost so much this year that it's going to be hard to fill all of those spots in just 1 year alone. I think it's going to take more than 1 year. They might be a contender, 9-10 wins, be a top 25 team, but I don't think that they're going to be a super contender for the college football playoffs like they were last year.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hard to lose that much and maintain the amount of success. They had obviously a lot of luck. Things go your way last year. It doesn't maybe quite go the other way. What works for them, and I will say this, Max Duggan was not supposed to be the starting quarterback last year for TCU. It was supposed to be Chandler Morris. And Chandler Morris will be the starting quarterback this year for TCU, presumably. So if they feel confident enough in him last year, does that give you confidence that, hey, they won't really miss much out on quarterback? And if you have good quarterback play, you can continue some success. So that's the one thing maybe working for TCU in that realm. Yeah, they're replacing a starter, but a guy they expected to be able to start for them. So a guy they obviously have some belief in already. So Mitch, to wrap this up though, one more team left. You see it at the bottom there. If you're watching, if you're listening, you're like, we went through all the Power 5 conferences. Who do we have left? That's right. We are going to include a group of 5 team. We have seen one group of 5 team make the college football. Shout out to Cincinnati in 2020, right? Or 2021. 2021. This year's contender for it is Tulane, the Green Wave, the defending Sugar Bowl champs, the defending New Year's Six representative from the
Cotton Bowl
conferences. Cotton Bowl. Thank you. Cotton Bowl champs. Defeating USC, and they bring back Michael Pratt. They bring back a lot of talent, and they should be the best of the group of 5 and a New Year's Six team, as long as they win that AAC title. Football playoff contender, though, obviously a dark horse, probably a D tier, but they deserve the mention, right? Because the Green Wave are incredible, and if anyone's going to do it from the group of 5 ranks, it's probably Tulane.
Yeah, they're really good. They're really good, but D tier is definitely there, and it's because it's the group of 5 bias, I guess. Yep. They have to go through a lot of adversity through the voting, through the AP polls to even put themselves in that position to get to a college football playoffs, which is going to be nice when it does go to 12, because maybe these teams like this that are underrepresented,
they'll get an automatic berth. The group of 5 will get one automatic berth. The top group of 5 team will automatically qualify for the college football playoff. So we will see
Right.
a group of 5 team every single year in the college football playoff starting in 2024.
And that will be nice and good representation for those smaller colleges that are in that group of 5. But the Green Wave was so good last year. Tajay Spears, one of my favorite fantasy football picks this year, by the way. Very high on Tajay Spears. But great representatives coming out, beating USC in the Cotton Bowl. That was a huge dub, a fantastic game if you didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's on YouTube. Go watch that game. It's still good now. Tulane absolutely should be considered as the cream of the crop when it comes to group of 5 schools coming into 2023.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to need to go 13-0, undefeated, win the AAC championship game, and they're also going to need the AAC to be good. They need some of those wins to look good, right? They can't have the whole conference being ass and beaten up on a bunch of shitty teams. They need UTSA to be really good. They need some of these other AAC teams to emerge and be really competitive this year to kind of help boost their strength of schedule. The big non-conference game that they have is hosting Ole Miss in the second week of the season, which Ole Miss right now a top 25 team. If Ole Miss ends up at the top 15 and you blow them out at home, that'll help the resume, but obviously Tulane would have to have so many things break their way. But
that was the other thing I was going to say is they need a hallmark win as well too.
Yeah, right.
Like there is so much a group of 5 team has to do to even put themselves in the conversation, and Tulane has the talent to do it. I just think they're way too long of a shot.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. All right, that's our Sports Hour tier list this week. College football playoff contenders in 2023 for those that are listening on the podcast feed and can't see the tier list that we have up on the screen. I'm going to read it off to you. Starting at the S tier, the top tier teams, we have Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and USC. In the A tier, we have Alabama, Florida State, and Washington. In the B tier, LSU, Tennessee, Penn State, Utah, Oregon, and Texas. In the C tier, Clemson, Oregon State, and Kansas State. And in the D tier, Wisconsin, North Carolina, TCU, and Tulane. Mitch, I'm not going to lie. I feel really good about this.
As you read it off, I felt even better about how we put those those teams in order. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that feels right to me and to Mitch clearly too. So you guys let us know if you're listening, if you're watching, if you've got thoughts on this. Did we put the wrong teams in the S tier? Did we disrespect someone? Are we overhyping someone? Let us know in the comments. Let us know on our social media channels. Send us a message if you have some opinions on who will be the true college football playoff contenders in 2023. But yeah, I feel really good with this list. I would be really surprised if the college football playoff contained any of the teams outside of that top 7. Outside of that S and A tier, which is Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, USC, Alabama, Florida State, Washington. I think if it was any of the teams outside of that, of the 4, I would be pretty surprised if one of those other teams snuck in. Obviously they can, that's why we put them in here, but
you'd be surprised if LSU got in?
I would be pretty surprised if LSU got in, because that means they'd probably have to beat Georgia in the SEC title game, right? Or Alabama, I guess. So yeah, I'd say I'd be pretty surprised. Maybe LSU's the one that wouldn't be. But other than that, I think we did this pretty right.
Okay, so of the teams and where we have them ranked, what team do you think in that, let's say out of the S and the A tier, is the most predisposed or the most likely to disappoint?
Ooh. I'm gonna say USC. I'm going to say USC because, one, they have some of the most hype with the defending Heisman winner and, everything that needs to happen for USC before they jump to the Big Ten. But also because the Pac-12 is just so good this year that, I wouldn't be shocked if they lost 3 games. Right? I mean, it's like, if you got to play Washington and Oregon and Utah and Oregon State and UCLA, I mean, there are some really good teams in the Pac-12. They drop a couple games. I wouldn't necessarily be shocked. So I think USC is the one team for me. What about you?
Well, yeah, I think USC, you bring up a good point. I think for me, it's Georgia. I think they have the most likely, they have the highest, for me, possibility of getting back to the playoffs. They also have the highest possibility to disappoint because there's that quarterback is such a question mark for them. And, they might be like a Big Ten team that's playing in the SEC where the defense is so good, but they can't score on offense. They just can't get it done. And I could see Georgia kind of going that route. Not saying it's going to happen, but I think that for me, that's the team with as big of a question mark as Carson Beck is, that they could be one of those teams that is, likely to disappoint. And disappoint could be 2 losses and missing out in the playoffs.
Exactly. Right. And still getting to, the Fiesta Bowl or whatever it'll be. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's totally fair. And I do think too, I mean, this is a program that's won back-to-back national championships. That weighs on you. We see that in professional sports, teams that are consistently winning at the top level. How do you keep up that competitive fire year in and year out? Luckily for college football is you've got, 20, 30, 40 new guys every year on your roster with, graduations and transfers. So it is kind of easy to rebuild the fire because your roster is very different year by year, but still maintaining that level of consistency and success at a high level, going to be difficult for Georgia. We'll see if they're up for the task. So that was fun, Mitch. I'm glad we did that exercise.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm really glad we did that. That was, I think that really put into perspective what my expectations are going to be of certain teams going into this college football season. And if you have any input on this, make sure that you get at us on the Instagram and the TikTok when this becomes a clip that you can watch in there. Give us your feedback. Give us your thoughts. Where did we go wrong? Where did we miss? We would love to hear from you interacting on the socials.
Absolutely.
And leave us a voice message. Voice message. We want to hear that type of stuff.
Absolutely. And we'll play it like we did with Tanner's on last podcast. So those socials for those as we wrap up the podcast here. If you don't already follow, Instagram at the Sports Hour Guys, TikTok at the Sports Hour Guys, Twitter at Sports Hour Guys. That's where you can watch the lives, as well as on youtube.com/the Sports Hour Guys. We are also on Threads. Mitch, did you even know that? Do you know what Threads is?
I don't know what
Threads is. The new Meta app, which is the Facebook, Instagram company, Mark Zuckerberg. It's basically Twitter. It's Facebook's version of Twitter, Instagram's version of Twitter. It's a whole different app that is basically just Twitter, but not Twitter. It's Threads. So there you go. We've got a Threads, though. So if you are on Threads, follow us at the Sports Hour Guys because I put us on there. So got to be on top of shit.
All right, cool. I guess that's another fucking useless app I got to download.
I mean, not really. You don't have to. We'll see if it pops off. But yeah, that is the new thing.
I don't know what Threads is. I'm such an old man. Such an old man.
Oh, Mitch, it's just so funny. We like the different worlds. I literally had people for the last week before it even came out who I work with that were already on Threads that were already like, oh yeah, we got to get in on this. This is going to be huge. I'm like, guys, like, calm down here. It's just another social media. Like, I don't think it's going to be that big, but you never know.
Man.
So yeah, if you are on the Threads, folks, you can follow us on Threads. And as always, listen to the podcast wherever you get podcasts.
That's right. You can get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. You can look up the Sports Hour Guys. You will find us there. Get on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating review. Tell us that we suck, because Dallen, that is the only way that we can get better.
Yes, is the only way that we could get better. Still trying to do that. Still trying to work on that getting better part. So, if you want to help us out with that,
we still suck. So tell us that we can get better. How we can get better.
Absolutely. This has been fun. We'll have more fun off-season content coming up. I mean, and we're just right around the corner next month. We'll be getting into NFL, college football previews, fantasy football previews. Like, come August, guys, lock into the Sports Hour because we'll be bringing it.
This is the last full month without football.
Oh my God.
The last full month without football.
It's a beautiful
thing. It's so close.
It's a beautiful thing. We cannot wait.
I cannot wait.
Cannot wait. Should be a lot of fun. So that'll do it, folks. Next time, we love you. We appreciate you. And we'll catch you next week.
So long, everybody. And a very pleasant good evening to you, wherever you may be. See ya.